All right, we are live.
Okay. I still have volunteers telling me they couldn't, the live stream link wasn't working. So I was just sending them the information real quick. Do we want to wait till some people join? How do you, like, I can't, well, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. We can give it a couple minutes.
There's no one on yet, right?
Oh, here's some people. All right. Bailey, can you see us now? Nice. Okay, good. All right. I'm just gonna dive in because I feel like stuff's happening so quickly. I'm gonna make really quick work of this. My name is Karen Swoboda. I am the executive director at Defense of Democracy. This is a election night watch party. We are partnering with People for the American Way. I'm reading the chat and I'm seeing that some of us are. I think all of us are quite nervous. So I'm very appreciative to People for the American Way and Josh and Dylan who helped put this together and everybody who's on this call. Very grateful to my volunteers and excited about and cautiously optimistic and hopeful. So welcome and everyone to the show. And I am now gonna transfer it over. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on my words a little bit. I'm going to transfer it over to you over at People for the American Way, so you can do a quick welcome as well.
Yeah, sure. Yes, and Karen, thank you for doing this. I too am nervous. I know we all are, and we all could be obsessively switching between MSNBC, CNN, and yes, even maybe Fox News to watch this. But we thought to ourselves, everything hard to do is easier together. And as these results roll in, being able to chat with each other here on screen and know that if you are a friend of Defense of Democracy or People for the American Way, then we are in this together. In fact, if you don't mind, before I introduce two members of our team who have been working extraordinarily hard for the last year, if you don't know what People for the American Way is, for 45 years, we've been a civil rights and voting rights organization with 1.5 million members and supporters, founded by Norman Lear, the legendary TV producer who made All in the Families and the Jeffersons and Sanford and Sons and on and on and on. I came to know People for the American Way and Norman through the Young Elected Officials Network. That's a network he founded 20 years ago to encourage young people to run for office, to create a pipeline of leadership. I was on the city council then in Ithaca, New York. I was elected there when I was 20. I was elected mayor when I was 24, and it was my dream job. It was the best and still the most fun thing I've ever done. I was mayor for 10 years, and I was in my third term when January 6th happened. And I was shocked. I'm sure many of you here were shocked and alarmed, and frankly, it scared the pants off me. I realized that everything I've been fighting for my entire adult life, the way I thought elections worked, the way I thought our country worked, the sort of freedom and security I took for granted, could be taken away by fascism, by a loss of democracy. And I frankly thought that most people in this country were dramatically underreacting to the threat. I thought the Democratic Party was underreacting. I thought the Republican Party was underreacting. I thought as I walked to and from work and I saw people going about their daily lives, I was stunned by how little folks were freaked out. But I knew Norman was freaked out. So I called him and I called People for the American Way. I said, what do you think? And he said, well, it's time for you to leave Ithaca and come and run this organization. And he was the first, as he pointed out to me, he passed away, some of you might know, in December at the age of 101 years old. And when he asked me to run the place, he said, you'll be the first president that's younger than the organization. And I said, well, I promise to stay true to your history. And he goes, you're not listening. That's not why I hired you. We need to move into the future. And I have to say these two folks, Josh San Miguel, who is our Deputy National Political Director, will be playing our resident Steve Kornacki this evening, breaking down the election results from all over the country. And our Marcus Batchelor is perhaps the hardest working man in politics. Not only was he member of the DC school board when he was just a teenager, believe it or not, the youngest ever member of the Washington, DC school board. But he has been to, Marcus, how many states in the last 2 weeks alone?
5 states, 8 cities in 5 states, 7 cities in 8 days. So
okay, yeah. So and you can work a little harder. I think there's a poll open in Arizona somewhere. So could you just please get back on the road? Let me first hand it over to Josh, who really nobody has a better sense of the numbers and the data as those roll in. I want to introduce Josh. Josh will speak for a bit. We'll go to Dylan, and I just want to reiterate that all evening we're going to be here with you. We'll have speakers, elected officials from all over the country popping in and out. We have video testimonials that have been rolling in today after people voted. They sent us videos talking about why they voted. And we're going to talk about what to do. No matter what happens tonight or in the coming weeks, we won't close up shop. Defense of democracy doesn't close up shop. These campaigns end, and that's the way they should. They should end. But if we stop organizing, that's a mistake we made before. I hope you don't mind me saying. We've made this mistake before. We thought we'd done something great in 2008. We elected Barack Obama, and I was so excited to go home and watch him fix the country. We cannot go home. We cannot wait for anyone to save us this time. No matter what happens, we have to stay at it, and we're going to stay at it. So we're going to talk about that and other things tonight. With that, I'll hand it over to our Deputy National Political Director, Josh San Miguel.
Welcome to the stream, everybody. I just wanted to give you all a quick rundown of what we're going to be watching tonight. First, I think probably most of our viewers are going to be pretty familiar with the American system of counting presidential votes. That is, of course, the Electoral College. But just in case, a quick refresher, there are 538 total electoral votes at stake in this election. Every state is allocated a specific number of these 538 votes, which is based on the total number of representatives that the state has in Congress. That includes House of Representatives and senators. The more populous the state, the more electoral votes it has. Now, in order to win the presidency outright, a candidate must secure a simple majority of 270 electoral votes. Now, the late-breaking Des Moines Register poll notwithstanding, we expect 7 states tonight to be competitive. These 7 states are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. These 7 states together are worth a total of 93 electoral votes. Now, we are operating under the assumption that Harris has 226 electoral votes in the bag, and that Trump likely already has a presumed 219. That is not to say these are guaranteed. Surprises do happen during elections. We've seen it in recent cycles. But if we see any outliers or serious swings one way or the other tonight, we will talk about it as it happens. Now, per the United States Constitution, federal elections are administered by the states. So that means that each state has their own unique rules, including what times the polls close and how votes are counted. Now, because of this, we will see significant variation in how fast votes are tallied in each state, how they're reported, etc. This is normal. This is okay. This is good. It is very possible, if not likely, that we will not know the winner tonight, or maybe even tomorrow, or maybe even the next day. That does not mean that something is wrong. You will see folks on the right, Trump and his buddies, pushing all kinds of conspiracy theories about vote switching or ballot machine hacks or people throwing away ballots, undocumented immigrants voting, etc. His team has communicated publicly that their strategy is to declare victory tonight and cry malfeasance and say the Democrats are cheating and they're trying to steal the election. My advice is to stay calm, trust the process, and we will know the winner when all the votes are counted in enough states for a candidate to secure a majority with 270 electoral votes, period. Also, real quick, I just want to address, I have also had folks ask about the so-called red mirage, and if we will be seeing a red mirage tonight. What is a red mirage? Well, in 2020, Due to the pandemic and the different ways that Republicans and Democrats generally took public health advice from experts, Democrats were overwhelmingly more likely at that time to cast their votes by mail to avoid catching and spreading COVID. Trump voters, largely heeding the conspiracy theories espoused by the president, many of them showed up in person on election day. For that reason, many in-person votes were counted first, making it look like Trump had a huge lead until the much more Biden-friendly mail ballots all dropped late in the night, slingshotting the margins back to near even in the battlegrounds. There will probably not be a red mirage this year, at least not exclusively. Republicans and Democrats appear to be voting early at similar rates, with GOP voters outpacing Dems in some of the states and the opposite in other states. Instead of leaning one way throughout the night and then flipping to the other side once the early vote numbers drop or mail votes drop, it's more likely that we're going to see a lot of flipping back and forth in states and congressional districts. And again, this is normal. This is okay. This is just a reminder to trust the process. Now, I do want to make sure that we get to some other commentary here, but I do want to just address one of our key battleground states right at the top, which is Georgia, because votes are coming in fast and furious in the battleground state of Georgia. Polls closed at 7 o'clock there. This, of course, is a state that was won by Donald Trump in 2016 and very narrowly by Joe Biden in 2020. Famously, Biden won Georgia last time by roughly 11,780 votes, which was less than a quarter of a percentage point. So it was very, very close. Mail votes and early in-person votes were beginning to be tallied this morning at about 7 o'clock. So since the polls closed at 7, we are getting a mix now of early votes and in-person votes that are all coming in at the same time. So again, don't worry so much. Like if some early votes come in, don't worry so much about which way those early votes lean, because the culture around early voting is just different than it was in 2020. Both parties are doing it. So instead of thinking of votes as like early votes or mail votes or in-person votes, just think of them as Trump votes or Harris votes, period. A quick by the county update. So for folks, I'm sorry that I don't have a really handy graphic for you to look at here, but there are 4 counties in particular that I'm going to be watching in Georgia to tell me over the next hour or so how this state might be going. And there are interactive maps all over the place. So first, Fulton and DeKalb counties. These are bright blue counties in the Atlanta metro area. And for Harris to win the state this year, her campaign has to juice turnout here to very high levels. Biden narrowly carried the state after taking Fulton with 73% of the vote and DeKalb with 83% of the vote. Hillary Clinton lost the state in 2016 and only lagged by a few points in each county. So these are two to watch very closely. Also, you have Cobb and Gwinnett counties. These are more swingy districts historically, but they've both been won fairly handily by Democrats in recent cycles. You know, these were counties that Obama lost during both of his elections, while Clinton barely managed to carry them. Biden really upped Clinton's numbers, winning Cobb with 56% and Gwinnett with 59%. So Harris really needs to match those numbers to stay competitive. And finally on Georgia, before we move on with the program, a quick note on demographics. So there's been a lot of polling data. Folks are paying attention to this, I'm sure. Some of these counties, especially Fulton and DeKalb counties, have very high African-American populations. Make no mistake, Harris will win with Black voters everywhere by very large margins. That said, if polling is any indication, this is one of the challenges for the Harris campaign. There has been a bit of attrition, if surveys are correct, to Trump among young Black male voters. So even a dip of a few points with these voters could make a huge difference. Now, on the other hand, Harris appears to be dominating with suburban women, including white women, which of course are the nation's single largest voting demographic. And that also includes older white women, with a historically wide gender gap showing up in surveys. And there are a lot of these suburban white older women in Cobb and Gwinnett counties. So in this election, to be frank, these gains might be enough to overcome some slippage, some bleeding in other places. And finally, there's one other county that I would keep an eye on, and that's Baldwin County. That's a rural county in Georgia with a disproportionately high percentage of Black voters, as well as college students. So it's a bit of a unicorn in being both rural, but largely voters of color and students. Biden won this county only by 1.3 points in 2020. So I'll be looking to see how that county breaks toward Harris or Trump. With that, I want to take a pause and go ahead and pass it over to Karen. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi. Okay. Well, thank you, Josh. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, and I'm also keeping an eye on my phone, and my house is all abuzz with people watching different streams of things that are going on. Can we ask questions now? I mean, is it okay? There's some questions about, I'm looking at a map and I'm concerned about what I see, and it might simply be because it's premature, but I'm looking at Georgia leaning toward Trump with 62, from what I see, 62% of the vote in. What do you think that means?
That's a great question. I'm happy to take that. So again, what we have to realize is that each of these precincts, each of these districts are going to come in at their own pace. So while the Constitution mandates that states administer their own elections, states generally run their elections by county and precinct level. So each of these precincts within the counties are going to have to report to their counties, and then those counties will report to the state. Mm-hmm. So what we are looking at, if I'm looking at an interactive map of Georgia, what I'm seeing is Fulton County. That's where Atlanta, that includes Atlanta. That's a big, populous county, bright blue. It's going to go for Harris by a large margin. Right now, only 78% of the votes are in for Fulton. Gwinnett, another one of those suburban counties that has trended blue in recent years and appears to be continuing in that direction, only 18% of the vote is in. There are a lot of counties across the state that are more rural, that are deep red, that are mostly or entirely in. So when you see 65% of the votes in, you may imagine that these are coming in uniformly, but that's not the case. Again, you can also look down at Savannah. Savannah is going to probably go very, very comfortably, very safely blue. That's in the southeastern coastal part of the state. Only 6% of the votes are in for Savannah, for the county, Chatham County, in which Savannah lies. And so there are a lot of big buckets of votes, frankly, for each party that have yet to be dropped. That's a great question.
Has there been anything surprising yet? I'm assuming, we could have seen New Jersey going for Kamala. We could have seen, Kentucky going for Donald Trump. Any surprises that are might be indicative of something?
I don't have much yet that I can say very confidently. What I can say right now is that if I am the Harris campaign and I'm looking at these bluer districts, I'm seeing results come in roughly at the same level that they were for Biden in 2020. So right now I'm looking at DeKalb County. 73% of the vote is in this county. This is a bright blue county as well. Kamala Harris currently leads 83% to 17%. Now, this is about what she needs to do, or maybe slightly exceeding what she needs to do in this county. So that's a good sign, but it's really going to be hard to tell until some of these big batches of votes drop.
You know what? I would like to say something because as things become more and more clear in what direction, I think it's important as, an executive director of an organization called Defense of Democracy to say, kind of reiterate what we heard before, which is that this fight isn't going away, and that, there's really kind of three scenarios right now. You could have, and the first two, to me, you could have a decisive victory for Trump, you could have a decisive victory for Harris, or you could have a big question mark. And, any one of those things to me seem potentially likely. And wherever it goes, if we have Donald Trump elected as our president, we're going to have work to do. If we've got Kamala Harris elected as our president, we're going to have work to do. I mean, there is absolutely, you know, I think that regardless, I personally, and I would advise my volunteers the same, to just, once this is over, take a deep cleansing breath, have some time with your family. We got through it. The decision is made. And then we move on and we keep fighting. And this is kind of the way that our country is going to be right now, because this is just the scene that's been set. This is where we find ourselves.
I think that's right. That's exactly right.
They're talking about the abortion amendment failed in someone got in Florida, I guess. What was the abortion amendment? For somebody who doesn't live in Florida, I'm just wondering what that is.
Let me take a look at the details.
Yeah,
because
so-
I don't want to give the details incorrect.
Yeah, so this is one of the ways that Florida has moved further and further red. They've tried to decouple their least popular policies from their politicians. So today, for example, they put recreational marijuana legalization on the ballot as a proposition, as well as constitutional right to have access to an abortion on the ballot. So that people could go, their strategy, this is Ron DeSantis, of course, their strategy is so that people could go and vote for Trump and Republicans while still voting for the more popular social issues like abortion and marijuana legalization. It looks from the exit polling like the marijuana legalization has failed. It looks like that is going to carry the day. The marijuana legalization will have failed in Florida, which keeps it, even further out of the mainstream of where the rest of the country is going. I haven't seen yet if Amendment 4, which is the right to abortion in Florida, if that has, if they're projected to pass or fail.
I am seeing the same thing. It doesn't look like it's been called by any outlets that I can see. So I think there may still be a chance there.
Awesome. Any other big questions that we see in the chat? If not, I know we've got some folks on the line who might want to talk about what they're feeling on the ground. I know all of us are watching these results in real time, but we've got a lot of people with a lot of perspectives who are seeing this from different points of the country. And so one of our first special guests is Midge. Midge, hello. Can you hear us?
Hey,
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. So tell us, where are you joining us from tonight?
I'm joining you from North Carolina. I'm in a very red little county called Randolph County.
All
And we did, back in the day, North Carolina did vote for Obama, but we are very red and it's very difficult to get anything very progressive here right now. But we're hopeful. We're very hopeful. We had a huge turnout for early voting in North Carolina, and I was very, very excited. I was there day one in line waiting for that door to open. I wanted to make sure I got my vote counted.
That's incredible. Yeah, I was just on the ground in North Carolina between Greensboro and Charlotte, and you're right. There's a lot of energy on the ground, and even though we've still got some votes to count in North Carolina in the presidential race, the race for governor for Josh Stein is already being called, and that's going to be incredible to keep the governor's mansion blue. And of course, People for the American Way supported candidates up and down the ballot in North Carolina this cycle, including Braxton Winston, who I know is running for labor commissioner. So many great folks, who's also a member of our YO network. And so there's a lot of great things happening in North Carolina. And so just tell us a little bit more. So you said you're from a small red county, but clearly you're a progressive champion there. What's it like there, and how are things moving in your part of the state?
Well, slowly, it is slowly, and there's power behind the old guard, as we call it. However, old guards have to move on.
That's right.
And then we are in the ready. We have a very, we have Chapel Hill, we have Raleigh Durham, we have Greensboro. We had the rally in Greensboro, knocked it out of the park. I thought I'd been at a rock concert. My ears were buzzing by the time we left because there was so much screaming. It was amazing. She did a wonderful job. So I can see us continuing to progress. And, as a hope ambassador for Defense of Democracy, hope is my thing. If I don't have hope, I don't have anything. So I do lean toward being hopeful, although, living through the 2016 election was just shocking and scary and horrible. And there has been fear, but I've been so grateful for people like you guys that break down what's happening, and Heather Richardson and Charlotte Clymer. There's so many people I'm listening to that take out some of the fear and just say, okay, breathe. And so that's part of what I think we're all going to have to remember to do, is just take, like Karen said, we're going to have to breathe and make sure that we don't freak out too much, or at least not early. Don't freak out early.
Exactly. Still plenty of votes to count, and still plenty of hope left.
Yes.
And we've got work to do. And you're right. In the wake of the 2016 election, so many people, including our organizations, got to work and doubled down on the years of work we've been doing to advance our values and protect our democracy. And in so many ways, we're seeing that come to fruition across the country, and we've still got some fights left to fight. And so I really thank you for coming and joining us tonight, for sharing your hope from North Carolina. I wish I could have spent more time down there. It's a beautiful state, but obviously produces some beautiful people. So thank you, Midge. Any last thoughts you want to give our folks?
Yes, because Karen mentioned the exhaustion. So one of the things I wanted to talk about just briefly is that I know that we're exhausted, that there's been a lot that people are doing on the ground, and there is an exhaustion that comes into that. But the one thing that I want to remind people is that we do have to take care of ourselves. We've been through a lot. People are on the ground. They're at school board meetings. They're at rallies. They've been knocking on doors. It's okay to not be okay. So we have to name that we're not always okay. And that's just part of the growth of who we are. You may be scared. I've got skin in the gang. I got a wife that I'd like to keep. I don't want to have anybody take away my wife or my life or anything like that, or my rights. But that fear needs to mobilize me and not keep me stuck in that fear. So be exhausted, be scared, but then take a break. Make sure that you refuel yourself, because if you keep going depleted, you're going to wear out and you're not going to be effective. So take the time that you need to come back to yourself. Remember who you were before you got all freaked out or before you worked yourself to death. And then know that you have to come back to yourself. Do that through meditation or connecting to people that have energy. Make sure that you do the things you need to do in order to revitalize yourself. And then we're going to get back to work. But we can't go back to work if we're stumbling. So take the time you need. And then remember, we don't quit. We're not quitting. That's the hope that we have, that we will continue to move forward because we believe in the cause, and we'll take care of each other. And then we're going to get back in the game.
That's right. Karen, Dylan, any questions or comments for you all's incredible Hope Ambassador?
Yeah, I just want to take a moment, Midge. Thank you so much for coming on. I always love hearing you speak. You really are just a ball of sunshine. And I'm excited, to be here with everyone.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. It's my pleasure and my honor, always.
And I want to mention to those who don't know that Midge has a podcast called Gay with God. And I have connected with Midge because there's a lot of conflict with, the people who are Christian in regard to what the Catholic Church has been doing and the Christians have been doing. So Midge, your voice has always been really important to me personally, as somebody who was raised Christian and recognizes the co-opting of that faith and how painful it can be to see. So,
Well, and that's a great point. Let me just quickly say, because I know we have lots of things on the agenda, but reclaiming my faith and honoring my story and honoring the stories of all of the queer community, to say that if religious trauma stole your faith and you weren't allowed to be whoever you were supposed to be because you were gay or because, whatever, that's nobody's business but yours and God. So the God of my understanding says that I was created to be me, and no one can take that away from me. So my podcast honors the people who have been through the coming out and the faith journey wherever you landed. And I want to honor those stories. And the memoir that I wrote about my own personal journey was about reclaiming my faith and honoring my story, because without that, then you also don't have the strength, the inner strength you need to stand proudly in who you are. And we all need to stand proud in who we are created to be and put our light out into the world.
Amen. Incredible. An incredible reminder, especially today. Thank you so much, Midge. We appreciate you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much. So before we switch back to analyzing some of the numbers on the ground, I know we're going to bring Josh back in a little bit, especially to talk about what we're seeing in Maryland and Virginia. I think we have a video submission. And again, like I said, we're going to be including many voices from around the country tonight. And so I think we've got a quick video from somebody who recorded the reason why they voted in this election.
From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran, served in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the main reason why I'm working and going to the polls is to ensure that our democracy is secure. That's it. When you've seen the aftermath of Taliban rule, you want to make sure that it doesn't happen here. Thank you.
And I'm from Connecticut, and my voting journey started as a high school student at East Hartford. My history teacher was a senator, so that's how I started to vote. Now, in this election, however, I'm definitely voting for Kamala D. Harris. She is a perfect candidate for our country to move forward, and I'm so excited to know that we will have the first elected woman president of the United States. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy my voter story. Bye-bye.
Love it. We love incredible voter stories. We love hearing those. I know our organization's doing this work all over the ground, all over the country, meet so many incredible voices on the ground. And so getting an opportunity to share those with you is really incredible. All right. So let's quickly go to Josh really quick to get a quick update just on some quick numbers on the ground. I know we had some key races in Maryland and Virginia that we were going to go over. I know People for the American Way definitely endorsed in the Senate race in Maryland for Angela Also Brooks, and endorsed in several congressional races critical to a House majority in Virginia.
We're actually gonna bring out Pam right now. Pam is from Maryland. So Pam, why don't you tell us about what's going on in Maryland, what things are looking like, how are the people feeling?
So I spent several hours electioneering for my local school board because right now I live in a very red county in Maryland, and our school board has a majority Moms for Liberty candidates. This time it felt a lot different than 2 years ago. It seemed a lot more positive towards our candidates who are for all of the students and are supported by the teachers. Seemed a lot more positive. I don't have results yet. I've been checking my phone, but our polls just closed at 8 o'clock. And typically in Maryland, We don't really have results until about midnight. Probably won't know anything about our Board of Education candidates until tomorrow. I did see that they called Kamala for Maryland, which makes me feel good. And I did see that it's too early to call between Hogan and Angela, which is not surprising because Hogan was a very good governor at first. And so a lot of people that I've talked to who are Democrats and Republicans are both like, what do you think of Hogan? I'm thinking about voting for him. And he has not denounced Trump, although he said he has not supported Kamala. He said he's going to write somebody in like he did the last election. So I talked to a lot of people and I'm like, because of that, we really need to vote for Angela. I'm sorry, I just lost her name.
Also Brooks. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
I know.
And so it's not surprising that it's too close to call in Maryland right now between those two. So that's what I know so far. I am feeling a little bit positive that at least one of our Board of Education candidates is going to get on the board.
Incredible. And what county did you say you were in for the school board?
Carroll.
Yeah. Critical races. I know that there's a lot of folks on the Apple ballot across the state that needed our support today. So very hopeful that we'll get some of those Board of Ed folks on for sure.
We're hoping because one of our candidates one of our Board of Ed members literally told two little boys that he's on the Board of Education. He told two little boys who have two moms that while they seem like a very nice family, their family's too controversial to talk about in school. And those little boys took it hard.
That's incredibly painful.
And I was at that board meeting. I sat in front of those two little boys and I could not believe he said that.
Yeah, incredibly disgusting. We've got a lot of work to do up and down the ballot, but I know that there were people working hard on the ground for those Board of Ed seats, and especially for Angela, right? Given I know there was a lot of work to build her name recognition across the state, and a lot of people did that work, and so we're really hopeful for a big victory for Angela tonight, because it's going to be critical to a Senate majority, but she's also proven to be such an incredible candidate in terms of defending, I know, Maryland's values, but also the values of organizations like ours, and I know folks like you. So thank you so much. Yeah. I really, from everyone I've heard that was electioneering today for our Board of Ed, they were so much more positive than we were 2 years ago. So hopefully people realize that, book banning is not good. Because our county started the book banning in Maryland. Yeah. Well, we're working hard, and so we're gonna be looking at those results up and down the ballot tonight, along with you. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Josh. I know our resident Virginian. I know there's a lot going on in the Commonwealth. Why don't you give us an update?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to definitely throw it to our guest here in a moment. But first, I just want to address where Virginia stands at the moment. So for folks who may be watching results come in on one of the cable news networks or online on the sort of New York Times live results tracker like I am, you may be seeing, oh, wow, Donald Trump has about a 1-point lead right now with 55% of the votes in. I just want to remind folks that these results are not coming in uniformly. One of the reasons that you're seeing such a strong performance for Trump at this stage in the race is because you do not have many votes in yet from some of the deepest blue counties and independent cities across the Commonwealth. So Richmond, for example, only 11% of the votes in. Henrico County, only 15%. The Northern Virginia suburbs, still waiting on some of those to come in, as well as population centers in the southeast. So I just want to caution folks that we do not expect Virginia to be competitive tonight. However, Virginia is deeply important for the fight for Democrats to retake the House of Representatives and make Hakeem Jeffries the next Speaker of the House. And so for this, I do want to go ahead and introduce Matt Rogers. Matt and I met several years ago doing some work for an organization in Virginia that works on civil rights and organizing for labor, called New Virginia Majority. And now, Matt, I believe, if I have this right, you're working for the chair of the Loudoun County Board as his chief of staff.
Yeah,
is that right?
so the chair Phyllis Randall, a woman. She was the first woman elected to or first person of color elected to be county chair. Now others have done it since her, but of any color. Yeah, so Phyllis Randall, big deal. Yes,
Incredible.
obviously I'm on the show in my personal capacity. Just want to make that clear. But yes, that's what I do. That's what they pay me for, to run her office.
Incredible. Thanks for I appreciate your correction. So Matt, I would love to just get a kind of a vibe check from you. I know we are looking at a few competitive House races across the Commonwealth. We don't have any calls yet, as far as I understand. But how we're, as someone who's working in a competitive congressional district, how are you feeling right now? What are the vibes like on the ground? What is, how are organizers and volunteers feeling? We would just kind of give us a vibe check. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think, what we're watching across the country right now is just to see how big these Democratic vote banks come in. And a lot of people have left it out on the field, done everything that they could. And I definitely, saw a lot of effort from the folks here on the ground here in Loudoun County. I would definitely say when I look at the returns, you see in Virginia 10, where I live, you see a closer than should be at the moment race. However, you don't have Fairfax County in, you don't have all of Loudoun County in. And so then you don't have a lot of Prince William County, where he's winning by close to 70%. And so you got to watch as that comes in. That's going to come in huge. And then that's going to take Kane way up over the top. And so this isn't a race that's going to be a 5-point race. I think that this is going to be pretty much a runaway. And, obviously everybody's watching, with bated breath about the national. And it's the same kind of trends that we're seeing, is how disgusted are the people who decided they don't like Donald Trump? How large of a turnout is there going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Same question as everywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think I'm just continuing to take a look at the Virginia map here, and it really does look like there are a lot of jurisdictions, a lot of districts and precincts that are still very early in the reporting process. So yeah, again, just want to re-up what you said. Don't take anything, any sort of horse race stuff too seriously until you see some of these big buckets of votes dropped later in the evening. And it often is the case that urban centers take a little bit longer to count than some of these rural, more sparsely
votes to count.
Yes,
more votes to count.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Okay. So do you have a sense for, any sort of messages maybe that are resonating with voters in your congressional district, for example, that may tell us a little bit about, a little bit of the story of what this election is going to be about?
I think something that's attractive for a lot of voters for the congressional candidate that's in my district, Suha Subramaniam, who I do expect to win, to win this race. And something that the I believe still the president to be has talked a lot about is, we're just so sick of the hyper partisan nature, especially being in Loudoun County. There's been a lot of that. Is just, it's always ratcheted up to 10. And we all to a degree are longing for that time where we could have, the type of Barack Obama, Mitt Romney type of debates about, the role of government and things like that. And so I think that that's something that really has resonated here on the ground. You have a lot of people here in Loudoun County who in previous election cycle, previous times, were Republicans and they were comfortable voting Republican. But a lot of them are really rejecting what is coming out of MAGA at this point, and a lot of people are just really fed up. And I think when it's all said and done, that's going to be the story of tonight. I think we're seeing a little bit of a red mirage, and I'll eat crow if I'm wrong on this, but I think we got a little bit of a tough moment here, but I think we're going to get through and pull through, and that's going to be the story of this whole thing.
Great. Really appreciate it, Matt. I think are there questions in the from any of our other folks on the panel or?
I was actually just thinking, obviously we're all focused on the top of the ticket, but are there other seats a little farther down that could help pro-democracy future that we're looking to flip or might have flipped already or something like that?
Well, there were a couple of opportunities for Republicans to have House pickups. You had MAGA Mike Johnson coming to Virginia 7th Congressional District to come and campaign for Derek Anderson, who they gussied him up well. I mean, he ran a pretty decent campaign. I think from a tactical campaign perspective, I don't agree with the tactics or what he's exactly fighting for. So that was it's a really important race. It hasn't been called yet. That one will tell us a lot about everybody who cares about this and cares about the gavel, Hakeem Jeffries getting the gavel, definitely continue to watch Virginia's 7th Congressional District, formerly represented by Abigail Spanberger, who you may have heard of, who is going to be the potentially the gubernatorial nominee next year. People still have to run that race and do what they have to do, and we got to make sure we still have a democracy after tonight. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Yep.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you everybody for
thanks,
having me on, and Joshua for inviting me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. I really appreciate you joining and taking time out of your probably very busy night as well to join us. So thanks so much. And
on to victory.
That's right. That's right. All right. I'll toss it back.
All right. Now we have two individuals from North Carolina, Rebecca Trammell and Kate Belford, who is on our board of directors. So, Rebecca, why don't we start with you? Tell us everybody's focused on North Carolina and, not with a little bit of trepidation. What's happening out there?
Well, we hope we come and pull through for you guys and do our part for the country. That's what I'm hoping for tonight. It has not been for any lack of trying or effort, most certainly. But right now, Kamala Harris is trailing by just maybe a 1.5 or so in the general election. But I don't think that's going to be the final say. I do believe that North Carolina is going to pull through. I don't think we're going to pull through as strongly as we had hoped, but we are seeing that for right now, we are coming a little bit behind. However, I don't think they've called New Hanover County, and I just waited over 2.5 hours in line at UNCW to vote, which is where I vote. And so there's a lot of young people voting for the first time. And I would say most of them are voting in the direction of Kamala Harris. So I have high expectations. I still have hope. Well, I don't have high expectations. I have hope. And I think that that's something that we can hold on to tonight. Around here, I'm still at a party, a watch party. And I think everybody's waiting with bated breath. But I think that the consensus is we believe that democracy will prevail and we are going to do the right thing.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kate, where are you right now? Looks like you're someplace big.
Yeah, so I'm at a watch party too. One of the Democrat watch parties here. No specific candidate is around necessarily. We're just a bunch of like-minded individuals that are waiting with bated breath for Michelle Morrow to go away. So.
All right. And how, and was it busy, like at the like, is there anything that you could say as an indicator or looks a little, wait, actually remind me, North Carolina went for Trump last time? Is that what happened? Okay.
Yes. Barely.
Thank you. Barely. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm in a blue bubble of this state for sure. I'm in Wake County, so we were in one of the bigger counties, and you know, it's a different vibe here. Obviously, we've got a lot more like-minded people around us than some of the others in the state, and so right now everybody's feeling really good. You know, I got canvassed for the first time, and I've been in my house for 12 years, and it's never happened. And I had somebody come knock on my door, and I was super excited to talk to them. And they were all the way from West Virginia to canvassing in North Carolina, trying to get things done. So I think there's a lot of people that put a lot of energy and a lot of excitement into this election, and I'm hoping that we pull it through as well, because it's definitely we need to tonight for sure.
All right. Yeah. Is there anything else that you can mention, or are there any other of the down ballot we talked a little bit about that are concerning to you guys?
Yeah, I'm just really concerned about Michelle Morrow. Obviously, she's Yeah. Mo Green is running against her, and the school board superintendent. And so, you know, right now she's ahead, or last time I checked, she was ahead. But, you know, we don't have some of the bigger counties reporting yet. So
and I'm looking her up because I'm not familiar with her. She is the superintendent for North Carolina superintendent for public instruction.
Yeah, she's never had a child in school, in these public schools at all. She's said horrible things about special ed students, and she wants to defund the education. Like, she is one of those people. She is a Moms for Liberty 100%. And she has got to go. And we're all a little bit worried about that. All the people within my circle and are all a little bit worried about her because she's kind of scary.
Well, and I think what's really concerning is that we have a wonderful candidate on the other side, which is Mo Green. Completely deserving, absolutely qualified without a doubt. He deserves to win. He would really serve the 80% of children in North Carolina who go to public schools so well. And I hope that we don't lose this opportunity to put the right person in the seat tonight. And I don't think that we will. I have confidence that we are going to do the right thing in North Carolina. I think we would have done better if we could have raised more support in the Black community. That's one of the things. We lost some steam there, and I think that and it's not for poor reasons. We need to do better on delivering on promises to the Black community. And one of the things that they could have done that would have made an immeasurable difference, I think, in this election would have been to deliver on Leandro versus North Carolina, which we would see an investment of $5.54 billion into our public schools. And I hope that this is a learning experience, that if we want to keep the Black vote, if we want to keep if we want to stop disillusionment with would-be voters, we have to deliver on policy issues.
Yeah.
And I hope that we get that chance.
I just want to chime in real quick, and like you guys have mentioned, just holding on to that hope. That is really important. We still got a lot of time left, so just keep holding on to that.
Keep hope alive.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thanks, y'all. I'll just say we are rooting for Mo Green as well. People for the American Way endorsed Mo in his race for superintendent of public instruction. So we are also holding out hope and hoping he brings it home, because we know we've been working to defeat Moms for Liberty candidates all over the country. And so we know what one looks like when we see it. And so we've got some work to do in North Carolina. Thanks, y'all.
We welcome you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and speaking of another North Carolinian, we've got one of our incredible partners, Shaniqua from Crooked Media. What's up, Shaniqua? How are you?
I am good. How are you, Marcus?
Good, good, good. So how are you feeling right now? What have you and the Crooked team been doing in the days leading up to the election? And yeah, how are you feeling as the results start rolling in?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot, trying not to be too stressed out. But we actually, I think everyone on the team went out the past couple of weekends. I actually went down to North Carolina the past couple of weekends and knocked doors, which I did because the weekend before those last 2 weekends, I was literally in my apartment, just kind of starting to spiral. So I figured I might as well go talk to voters. But you know, it was interesting. It was mostly good. Most folks were pretty excited, but I did have some interesting conversations. I chatted with a naturalized citizen who was not interested in voting for either party in Hillsborough and Orange County, but he had 3 kids, and we actually talked about the superintendent's race, and then also talked about a ballot measure that they had, or county ballot measure that they had on the ballot about uh, a bond measure to give more money to their school. So he told me his wife had voted, and you know, he wasn't sure, but I could tell that he just wanted to talk. I think sometimes folks don't have someone listening to them, and so even though he, you know, I'm not sure if he ultimately went to vote. I think it did make a difference that 2 volunteers from the Harris campaign showed up to talk to him and listen to him about his concerns, and actually try to convince him that it was worth it. You know, that whole experience was interesting because me and my friend who went out to knock doors, it wasn't an actual turf within what the canvas packs that the election site had given out, but funny. I don't know if it's funny enough. Basically, they were like, "Oh, you and your friend are black, and this is a black and brown community, and they don't really respond well when we send white volunteers out." So we just went out there, and most of the folks we spoke to had actually voted already, and were really excited to vote for Vice President Harris. So you know, I got interested in politics in 2008 when Barack Obama won the state, and what I can say, having worked at Crooked for 6 years, um, and this being the fourth race, you know, fourth election cycle, this is the first year that I have felt that the coordination amongst the progressive organizations, amongst the state party, has just been superior. So I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but I can say that this is the best I've ever felt about us flipping the state. You know, we see that Josh Stein has already won. And so, again, I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel really good about it. The conversations I had on the doors were really good. And I'm from Granville County, and I went back there and knocked doors, and like, there's just a lot of investment happening in the state. The county party chair let me know that Jamie Harrison had come the day before. So I don't think there's anything more that could have been done in North Carolina. And if it doesn't happen this time, I feel pretty confident that it will happen next time. And I think we'll continue to see gains. And I'm hopeful that we can at least break the supermajority in the state legislature. But yeah, I think like everyone else, I'm hopeful for tonight, but we will see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. We're watching and waiting for sure with everybody here on the live stream. So yeah, no, thank you for that perspective. I know all of you have talked about specific outreach with Black voters, and so I got to be on the ground today with Black Voters Matter in Charlotte. Lots of energy at the polls. People excited to vote, and so hopefully that translates when all of the votes are counted. So
Yeah.
thank you all so much. I think next we're going to bring back Josh for a update on the numbers. And I know they're transitioning in studio, but want to say if you're watching with us and you know that there are a few friends who should be watching with us as well, definitely share the live stream with them. Share the link to the live page. We're going to be here for a little while, breaking down the numbers, talking to folks from across the country who have some just incredible perspectives about what's happening on the ground. And we're going to support each other through a long night and watch races up and down the ballot. So to talk about some of those, we've got Josh back at the People for office. What's up, Josh? What's new around the country? Can't hear you, Josh.
Oh, good. Okay.
There you go.
I think the big news so far is that we just don't have a lot of news. So right now, I'm still looking at Georgia, and it looks like there are some very, very minor shifts going on in some of the counties that I talked about. One of the counties is a suburban county, Fayette, where actually this is a county that Trump won in 2022 by about 7 points. This is a county where actually Harris has a narrow lead at the moment. Now that has not been fully called, but that is a pretty decent sign of some movement in Georgia. But again, simply too early to call. I also want to check in on North Carolina. North Carolina is about halfway in. Not a lot of calls we can make at this point. However, other than, of course, Josh Stein, the Attorney General of North Carolina, being declared or being projected the winner of the governor's race there. Elsewhere, I do just want to talk about what I'm watching in North Carolina that will hopefully tell us something in the near future. Of course, this is a state that was narrowly won by Trump both in 2016 and in 2020, with the margin tightening between those two cycles. The big basket of votes here in North Carolina is Mecklenburg County. This is Charlotte. This is the second largest county in the state, and it's the highest concentration of Democratic voters. Now, recently, in previous cycles, they have suffered from abysmally poor turnout in this county relative to like counties across the country. They do have a new chair of the county Democratic Party in that county, Drew Cromer, who implemented a plan to boost turnout throughout the county via unprecedented fundraising and voter contact by recruiting exponentially more canvassers and phone bankers to mobilize Democrats. This is one of the reasons why we think this is actually a great opportunity for the Harris campaign and for the coordinated campaigns of the Democratic Party in the state. I do just want to take a second, though, to acknowledge the great unknown here, which is how the fallout from Hurricane Helene will affect turnout. Obviously, the tragedy, the human tragedy of Hurricane Helene ravaged many parts of the state, especially the western part of the state. It was hit pretty badly, and it's kind of a mixed story politically. You had the deeply red counties, and you also have the bright blue dot of Asheville, tucked up into Appalachia. There really is no telling if there's going to be significantly less folks voting from these areas or if ballots can be quickly counted. Here, I will say that indications of early votes and mail-in votes do not look like there was a significant effect, at least at this point, from the hurricane. So all of this to say, Helene is one big reason why there's just a little bit more unknown than usual. And then also I just want to talk about Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson as well. He was already running behind, of course, Attorney General Josh Stein in the gubernatorial race before the major scandal. And of course, we saw early in the evening the call for Attorney General Josh Stein to be elected to the governor's mansion there in North Carolina. A lot of folks have asked what this actually means for the presidential race. And to be honest, I just want to say probably not much. There's very little evidence that suggests that voters who would otherwise turn out for the presidential election would decide to stay home because they dislike a statewide candidate. This is often called the reverse coattails effect, reverse coattails theory, the idea that these voters become demotivated because they don't like Mark Robinson, for example. I think it's more likely that you'll see maybe more split ticket voters, GOP-leaning voters who just didn't like Mark Robinson, who left that section of the ballot blank, or who crossed party lines to vote for Josh Stein. But it probably won't cause them, probably isn't going to cause much crossover if they're already inclined to vote for Trump. Now, as far as, I'm taking a look right now, this is live streaming here. I'm taking a look at North Carolina. We're looking at Mecklenburg here. Kamala Harris is running up 30-point margin in Mecklenburg. Only 10% of the votes are in. So again, when you see this 55% of the votes are in, and Donald Trump is maintaining a 3.1 point lead. This just really doesn't tell us that much yet. There are some red counties that have not reported at all, mostly rural counties, sparsely populated. But you do also have some areas like Charlotte, like Raleigh, Fayetteville. So these population centers where that are really, really critical for Democrats and for the Harris campaign that we're just not seeing a lot from at this point. So sorry to disappoint, probably, but a lot of the story tonight is stay tuned. And I'll briefly touch on Pennsylvania as well, if that's okay. So Pennsylvania,
I was going to ask that.
Okay, good. Yes, obviously, Pennsylvania. Polls closed here at 8:00 p.m. This is a state that was very narrowly won by Donald Trump in 2016, and very narrowly won by Joe Biden in 2020. What am I watching in Pennsylvania? There's actually a lot here. Okay, Philadelphia is a big one, right? The story of Philadelphia County and the city of Philadelphia is not who's going to win, but what the margin of victory for Harris is going to be. If we're looking at a margin at the end of these votes tallied of about 450,000 for Harris between her opponent Donald Trump, we're looking at a statewide race that's going to be very close. If we're looking at a margin of closer to 475, 480,000, that's a really strong indicator for Harris. Now, this is maybe shooting for the moon a little bit, but if we see a margin of about 500,000, that's a Harris win. So just to kind of give you some metrics here of what to look for in Philadelphia. And then also a really, really perhaps more critical than the city of Philadelphia just by the numbers are the collar counties. So when I say the collar counties, these are the counties that are suburbs and exurbs that surround Philadelphia. So we're talking about Delaware County, Bucks County, Chester County, Montgomery County. These four counties together contain 2.6 million people. So that's more populous than Philadelphia and Pittsburgh combined. And it's actually more populous than 15 whole states. So there's a lot of voters here. And these are the wealthiest and most highly educated counties in the state. They're culturally very sort of East Coast, Acela corridor. And these are counties that have been trending blue. So in 2020, Biden underperformed Clinton in Philadelphia, but overperformed her numbers in these collar counties, which powered his win of more than 82,000 votes. So of the four, Trump really only has a chance in Bucks County, but even if he ekes it out, he'd still need to hold his own in the other three. So Harris needs to continue to run the score up big in these suburban counties. And finally, I just want to say I'm looking at Allegheny County as well. This is where Pittsburgh is. So in Allegheny County, we saw in 2020 Biden leading. Biden winning that county by 59 to 39. So if I go over and I take a look right now at Allegheny live results, we're actually seeing 63-36 for Kamala Harris. Now, only 60% of the votes are in, so that could change a little bit. But so far, Harris overperforming Donald Trump's 2020 numbers. Also, I do want to say that it looks like we have a call in Maryland. And that is that Angela Alsobrooks has won her bid for the United States Senate, denying Larry Hogan, the Republican, the opportunity to caucus with Mitch McConnell and provide that Senate majority with an extra vote. So very good news. And another state that is not considered a swing state by any means, but Illinois has just come in. Called for Vice President Harris, which adds to her tally of electoral votes and gets her closer to that 270 that she needs. So of our 7 battleground states, we still do not have calls in the presidential race, but please stick with us. I'm going to be continuing to look at all of these numbers, all the data, and I'll chime in as soon as I have anything for you. But thanks.
Oh,
Please.
I was just gonna say, like, can you go? What are those 7 states, and is there any information on any of them that we could share right now?
None of the states are in. So again, the 7 battleground states that we are looking at this evening are Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, and the so-called blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So we do not have calls in any of these 7 states for the presidency yet. So that's why at this point, for the Electoral College, as far as the Electoral College votes are concerned, we really haven't learned anything yet about 3.5 hours into the first polls having closed in Kentucky and Indiana today. So we're still waiting with bated breath. We probably won't have to wait too much longer for Georgia. Georgia's 77% in, but again, we're still waiting for big batches of votes in some of the bluer counties. So it's just too early to say.
So I was gonna say, Josh, so just like as a big picture, we've got Trump slightly ahead in that southern swing, and then we've got Harris, at least right now, slightly ahead in the blue wall.
That's right, but I do just want to counter the narrative that you're going to see on cable and network television, which wants to keep you glued and wants to get you really, really anxious about like the horse race. These numbers aren't actually, you have to look at county by county. The top line numbers are really not determinative unless they are far out in one direction, because it's just, the states don't report all of their data uniformly all at the same time. So we really just don't have any indication in any of these states strong enough one way or the other that tells us who has the advantage.
Thank you, Josh, for that. I just want to pivot. We have another Hope Ambassador, Lisa, coming on now to share another message of hope. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. I'm so glad we could have you here today. So why don't you just go ahead and get started?
All right. Thank you, Dylan. I'm truly honored to be here today as an ambassador of hope for Defense for Democracy. A mission that resonates deeply with the values we share and the future we envision for our communities. Many of you are parents, professional caretakers, moms, dads, granddaughters, grandmothers, grandsons, grandfathers, balancing your responsibility while committing your time and energy to a cause that champions equity and truth. You have taken on this mission with grace, resilience, and it is through your hard work that we are able to inspire real change. Your efforts matter immensely. By advocating for inclusivity, you're not just promoting policy, you're fostering environments where every child, every student, and every individual feels valued and safe. The work that you do removes barriers, encourages dialogue, and nurtures understanding. You stand as beacons of hope, illuminating the path forward for a more just and inclusive society. In supporting educators who present historically and scientifically accurate information, you are safeguarding our shared future. You are empowering these educators to create classrooms that reflect the rich tapestry of our nation, a place where every story, every identity, and every experience is recognized, respected, and celebrated. Moreover, your commitment to the emotional and physical safety within the American public school and library systems is pivotal. You help pave the way for safe spaces where our children can learn and grow without fear of discrimination or exclusion. You remind us all that education is not a privilege, but a fundamental right that belongs to every individual, irrespective of their background. As we watch the unfolding of today's election, Let us hold on to hope that our collective efforts will echo far beyond this moment. Let us remember that every phone call made, every door knocked, every conversation initiated has a power to ripple outward, influencing hearts and mind. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to each of you. Thank you for leading the way. Thank you for believing in this mission and standing up for the ideals we hold dear. Together, we're forging a brighter future for all. Let us continue to strive together for a democracy that reflects the rich diversity of our great nation, where safety, inclusivity, and respect are more than just goals, but the very foundation of our society.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was great to have you on tonight. I always love hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I am keeping an eye again. I'm just looking in the chat. If we had a couple of things, someone said Ohio just went for Trump. Georgia's delayed. Issue 1 in Ohio is not looking like it will pass. But if we have other guests to come on, I just wanted to point out that we're talking about those states in the chat. And some good news from Maryland.
Ooh, yeah, good news from Maryland. Still watching many races across the country, but the numbers are beginning to trickle in. So just want to start. We've got a couple more guests. So first, I want to acknowledge Victoria Casanova, who's here, an incredible visual artist who worked with People for the American Way to commission a piece called Freedom, which was a depiction of Kamala Harris that not only appeared in print, that was distributed across the country, that was bought on our website, that was held up at Kamala Harris rallies, but was also wheat pasted across the country and is just circulated widely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And obviously, as we've talked about your art, as we've worked together over the last several months, I think we've always talked about this night and what this night would mean as a reflection, right, of the art you're creating. And so just want to give you an opportunity to first say hello to everyone, and then just give us some of your thoughts about how you're feeling initially as you're seeing some of the results come in.
Well, hi, I'm Victoria. I mean, in all honesty, looking at my phone and looking at it, I'm like terrified, but I'm hoping for the best. But I don't know, this night, it's like this election just holds such deep significance. Like it represents the chance to like shape the future that reflects mine and many others' values and priorities. Like I'm considering, I mean, getting into like the details of it, it's like I'm considering policies that impact healthcare, climate action, and social equality, all of which affect my present and future well-being, as well as, you know, everyone else's. And it's like I'm aware that my vote is part of a larger movement toward progress, representing the voices of a new generation eager for change. But ultimately, it's like this election is an opportunity for us to help forge a world that aligns with the vision of like a just, inclusive, and sustainable society, especially when it comes to women having basic rights over their body. So I'm like, with all of that in my consciousness, I'm just like on edge, but I'm optimistic. I believe in the people to make the right choice.
That's right. Well, I see our president, Savante Myrick, is here, and I know he also knows how impactful this art has been. Savante, what's up?
Yeah, well, first, I want to appreciate you, Marcus, for running the show. I also want to give you a bio break because we don't have commercial interruptions here, unlike NBC, and unlike Steve Kornacki, you don't get to go offline. So, Marcus, I want to give you permission to go take a 3.5 minute break. So I wanted to speak with both of you about art, and it seems like maybe again, a strange time to talk about this, right? Because people are going to the polls. But in the movement, in the fight against fascism, the most dangerous weapon has always been art. Who is it? Woody Guthrie's guitar that he wrote on it in marker, "This machine kills fascists," right? That free expression is the way that we maintain our independence and our democracy. So I want to ask both of you, if I could, about no matter what the election outcomes are tonight, which, by the way, I know what it looks like at this moment if anybody else is multitasking, but I still believe in the people of Philadelphia, the land of Allen Iverson. And I think is very, very high there, and I think the Rust Belt is going to hold. But even say it does, as we march towards collective liberation, People for the American Way, founded by an artist, Norman Lear, remains committed to engaging in a network of artist leaders to carry on this movement, to fight not only for legislation but for progress. And if I could, I swear I'm coming to a question here. What do you think? So Norman always felt that in order to kill anti-Semitism, he should show the lives of Jewish folks, he should show the lives of Black folks, he should show the lives of gay folks on TV, bring them into people's homes, so that 10 and 20 years down the road, we could achieve policy goals. He felt that our politics live downstream of our culture. So I want to ask both of you, as artists, as members of Artists for the American Way, what do you think right now we should be injecting into the mainstream of our culture in order to get better political outcomes 10 and 20 years down the line? What sort of stories do you hope to tell right now to improve our country 2 decades from now?
I'll go first. I'm Obi Arsukwu, known as Obi Ars, illustrator, artist, writer, and things like that. I would say one of the things that's really hurting a lot when it comes to voters is information, whether it's misinformation or no information. I think that was one of the hardest things, are one of the most frustrating things that a lot of people were saying, especially because of the Biden economy. Even though a lot of people feel like it wasn't a great economy, in about 5 years, people will realize how good of a president Joe Biden actually was. But I think the messaging behind what he was doing, it didn't really amplify the way it should have. I do feel like you have the Republicans, they're better messengers, especially because of negativity. And negativity is always going to amplify more than positivity. That's for sure. I would definitely say, like, literally the biggest thing is this. One, we just have to get the messaging out there, get the truth behind things. Also informing people on things. Like, a lot of people don't understand the CHIPS Act. A lot of people don't understand the infrastructure deal, right? A lot of people don't understand that inflation, we're doing a lot better inflation than the rest of the world is, right? And that we were on track to go into recession, and Biden's plan kept us out of the recession. I think that's the biggest thing. I think the more that we amplify and we actually get the real information out, I think it's going to help out a lot more. It really is just a lot of people not being aware of the truth out there and what's actually going on.
And do you think, Obi, because particularly graphically, why do you think it is that people respond to art better than they respond to, say, oral arguments or written arguments? When you tell people the truth via art, it seems to sink in, yeah?
Yeah, it's more because people don't like to read. Like, people, like, do you want to read a couple of sentences, or do you want to see one picture, right? And one picture that not only informs you, but it also captivates you, right? That's more interesting than reading some lines or having somebody explain it to you, especially if somebody explains it and people don't even want to trust the sources, right? Whereas I released some Kamala Harris, vote for Kamala Harris art, and it got incredible engagement, whether it's people who were for Kamala and people who were against it, but still it got really, really good engagement, more positive than negative, if anything. But more people responded to that than if I would have just put on a statement on my Instagram page or on my Twitter page.
Yeah. And Victoria, obviously, if folks have not seen this piece,
incredible, by the way.
Isn't it beautiful? It's gone viral. You captured not only the spirit of the candidate, but the spirit of the moment, I think. And we have, of course, put this up all over the country and gotten a great response. What do you think, Victoria? What do you hope to inject into the mainstream of our culture now that might show up in our politics 10 or 20 years from now?
Well, I was originally going to kind of like, my original concept was kind of what Obi was talking about. Like, it's the information. Like, if you look at like TikTok, there's so much misinformation and people that are very passionate about their opinions, and it can like start to influence like the way you're thinking. It's like, it's information. We're in a digital age where we have the whole world at our fingertips, and whatever we're consuming completely influences our state of being. And so when it comes to like politics, it's like, how are we getting those messages out there in terms of like art and why? I mean, I think art plays a crucial role in politics by offering a visual language that can transcend words, like enabling artists to communicate complex ideas and emotions in ways that resonate widely and powerfully. It challenges existing narratives, provokes thought, and can make abstract issues like justice and equality and freedom more tangible and relatable. And that's where artists can like start to like, how are we gonna express the right information in a way that's gonna capture people in authentic ways? Because there's ways where I've seen political art that didn't feel authentic. Like, I think authenticity is also like powerful. Like, whenever I'm making anything I'm making, like I put my whole heart into it. I think whenever I put like my beliefs in it, like even with the portrait with Kamala, I did it quite quickly, but I was like, I just want to put all of my like the energy I have of like what I want for this country into this portrait. Hopefully that somehow visually translates like in some way. I think that's important for artists.
Could I actually ask both of you to talk about that? It's a very vulnerable thing. A lot of folks get, of course, terrified to speak in public, to express themselves in public. But it's so important for artists to do that because all of the best and most impactful political art in American history was not created by a committee. And of course, that's the problem with a lot of campaign art. Victoria, as you were just mentioning, there's an inclination to play it safe, right? The campaign art that you see ends up just being the red, white, and blue flag and a smiley portrait of the candidate without challenging or exciting. In the last 2 decades, Victoria, one of your mentors and a member of our organization, Shepard Fairey, created the Obama Hope poster, which is probably in the last century the most important and most viral single piece of political art. He was not working for the campaign, right? These campaigns, they can do a lot, but they can't take chances, the sort of chances that artists can. So can you talk, both of you, what it's like to create and put something out into the world and how you find the courage to do that?
I would say just about by not giving a damn, right? Where it's one of those, it really is like you get kind of nervous, like you're scared you may lose followers, you're scared people may not like you, you're scared of feedback, but it doesn't matter. Like I would say, when I started doing these comic strips, I started doing this like 7-8 years ago. And before I did it, I was worried about, no, do I want to do these comic strips to be vulnerable and literally make fun of myself? And I talked to my brother-in-law and I said, what do you think? He goes, what's the worst somebody's going to do? Not like it? And once he told me that, I was like, oh, it's not as serious as people think it is. And I think we put too much pressure on ourselves sometimes to just release it and just and see what the results are going to be, what people are going to say about it. And then also, like, if people don't like it, people don't like it. If people do, they do like it. And you just go back and keep creating. Don't allow any kind of negativity, or if you have success and fear of creating something again because you won't get that level of success. That's just the way of the world, right? You just got to just keep releasing and keep dropping.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like if you want to be an artist or any sort of creative in whatever medium it is, it's music, anything, you have to be okay with vulnerability, and you have to like sometimes drop your ego with it. It's like you just got to put it out there. It's a vulnerable thing, just making like my personal fine art and anything I create, because it's all vulnerability. But like in terms of like especially the political space, like you have to not care. You have to not care. I've gotten so many messages. I got like the craziest messages from the other side, like saying all sorts of like crazy stuff to me like on DMs, and I think it's hilarious. But like you have to not care and like really be anchored in yourself and in like the anchored in yourself, but also anchored in like what you really believe is for the greater good, because it's bigger than you. It's not about you. It's way bigger than you.
It's
So
way bigger. And then also, like you said, you're getting people in your DM and your comments. These people don't know you, right? You don't know them. They hide behind their computer. They hide behind their phones. They will never tell you the stuff in your face, right? So you also got to get reality as well. Like, these are people who just want to talk. Some people want attention. Victoria, I'm pretty sure you've gotten this where someone would insult you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then when you comment back, and they'll say, "Oh, I didn't mean it. I'm a big fan." Right? It's a lot of that, right? So you just have to just be yourself and do what's true to you, and people can actually sense that if it's actually authentic or not.
Yeah, authenticity.
Yeah, I'll say that, and I hope we're preaching to the choir here. If the folks who are with us online are members of Defense of Democracy or People for the American Way, then they are already courageous Americans. But I notice, particularly whenever I go on Fox News, I will try and answer my phone personally for the next hour or so, because exactly what you said will happen. You'll get this call from a cranky person who's expecting to leave you a very nasty voicemail. And when you answer the phone, they go, "Oh, well, I was calling. I didn't exactly agree with what you said. And thanks for talking and hope you the best." And I just think, all right, let me ask this a question without trying to lead the witnesses, as they say in court. Do you think we, those who are on the side of progress and moving the country forward, could do a better job of being open to free expression, right? Of not being afraid of debate and conversation, and taking chances, like putting ourselves out there? Do you think that will help move our movement forward?
Yeah, it will. I feel like it's happening in a way. It's like it's up to the people to step into that role, really. But yeah, I absolutely believe that. I think that would any freedom of expression is needed.
I would say it only gets tricky when that freedom of expression becomes, racism, misogyny, bigotry.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely do feel like the reason why Trump has amplified so many people, because you have a lot of people who don't want to be restricted, who do want to say these things without consequences, right? And I think there's a difference between freedom of speech and just being offensive. And these people just want to be offensive, right? They feel like Trump gives them the green light to be the ugliest of who they are. And you go on social media is a very negative place for the most part, because a lot of people are just not happy with themselves, right? And they do want to be ugly in a term, right? So if it's possible to get us back to the grounds of where we can have these healthy debates and we don't have to argue with our family members or our friends or Black people and things like that, that'll be helpful. But we have to get over this hump, this orange hump right now before we start fixing it.
I like that. We need to get over this orange hump. See, this is why we need artists. I completely agree. And I think, if you could both put your social media handles and websites in the chat right now. I know it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen too. The both of you, Obi and Victoria, are part of a very rich legacy. I mentioned Shepard Fairey, whose portrait of Norman Lear hangs over my left shoulder. But from Robert Rauschenberg to Ed Ruscha to Richard Serra, and on for the last 4 decades, have carried the torch of People for the American Way. And I will just say this for those who are on the line. Anybody who purchased their artwork back then has not regretted it, particularly Rauschenberg and Richard and Sarah. So if you go ahead and purchase Victoria and Obi's work, you will not regret it 3 decades from now. In fact, you may be able to help pay down the national debt. I truly believe that. So I'm going to thank you very much for being here. I'm going to welcome back Dylan. We're going to go to Ohio, the Buckeye State. Yes, Colin. And the joke that my staff hates the most, when I say that I have relatives in Ohio, some of them are not proud of their buck teeth, but they're awfully proud of those Buckeyes. OSU. Nobody? Obi? Maybe? No.
I'm from Texas.
Okay.
Houston.
I have a transplant, so I'm not native.
All right. It was a joke. Okay. I'll leave it. Dylan, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
All right, peace.
Yes, I was. Do you want to ask Dylan the questions for the Ohio update? Yeah. So, why don't you? You're from Ohio, so why don't you tell us what's going on in Ohio?
Yeah, so as of right now, according to MSNBC, Trump obviously is in the lead in terms of the presidential election. And it is sadly, based on the last time I checked, in terms of Senate races, Bernie Moreno is in the lead as of right now. I know here in my congressional district, Chantel Brown is looking good. I believe she's at around like 81%. So I am holding out hope on that. I have a lot of respect for Chantel Brown, and one of the issues on our ballot was issue 1, and that was to establish a citizens redistricting commission. And as of right now, that also with 70% of the votes in, does not look like it will be passing. I know that people here in Ohio, at least my friends of people I've been talking to, are starting to get, a little nervous. I'm still holding out on hope on things. We still have, time left in the night. We have about, 30% left to go. So I'm trying to hold out that hope. But in terms of, the presidential election, it is not looking too hot here.
Was Ohio, it wasn't a swing state, right? It was just, is it one of those kind of flip-flopped a little bit?
Yeah, so I know in past it was looked at as a swing state, but ever since the previous election, it is no longer considered a swing state, but our Senate race is really important. It's Sherrod Brown. Many of you may have heard of him. He's a powerhouse, so it's important that we, try and keep him in. And that is one of the reasons why we are covering Ohio, is because of Sherrod and Bernie Moreno. But like I had mentioned, as of right now, it is seeming like Bernie Moreno is in the lead.
Okay. Okay. That was my only question, I think, about Ohio, unless somebody else wants to put something in the chat.
Well, let's talk about the Supreme Court. How are those looking?
I have not. I'm struggling to find anything specific on that here on my end. I have like a million tabs open.
Right.
But based on what I'm seeing thus far, I think it is fair to assume that it is not necessarily going in our favor. I know Josh will be chiming in soon with more updates on stuff that is going on within the states, but so far we are looking red across the board, except in my congressional district, which is a small win. So I will take it.
Yeah, well, we're definitely looking at those. I believe there were 3 seats up for the state Supreme Court there, that would be determinative for the balance of the court. So people endorsed in a lot of those races in the Supreme Court there. I know we're also watching some Supreme Court races in Michigan, and so I think this is probably a good time to reiterate the importance of Supreme Courts, of the courts in general, but especially of your elected Supreme Courts around the country, to pay attention to those folks who are on your ballot. I believe there were 2 incumbents and one open seat there, so we'll be checking on those races for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did just pull it up. As of right now, it looks like Ohio Supreme Court 1 and 2 are looking red, along with Supreme Court 3. I know the 2 incumbents are about at least 13% behind the Republicans that are running for that spot as well.
Yeah, that's tough. We'll keep watching now. I know that's those are really important seats, so we still got some work to do there. Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm gonna also make sure that we get a quick update on Pennsylvania. So there's obviously a very close race in Pennsylvania, and I'll make sure, and I know Josh will have some info later on kind of where we are in terms of the vote count in some of these counties. But just to give everybody an update, Donald Trump has a slight lead right now in Pennsylvania. I'm looking at 50% to about 49, so literally about a 1 point lead in Pennsylvania. We're also monitoring the Senate race in Pennsylvania, where Bob Casey is slightly down, but by less than a percentage point in that race. And so we're watching those. And there's also critical House races across the country, across the state that we're watching. It looks like Cartwright is up +6 in the 8th, and so we're going to keep monitoring those. But from the heart of Pennsylvania, from the best side, he would call it. We'll call it the west side of Pennsylvania. We've got Kevin Carter, an incredible alumnus of the Young Elected Officials Network. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, man. So tell us what are we seeing in the state? How are you feeling in the Commonwealth?
Well, it is the Commonwealth. Pennsylvania is a most certainly purple state. It is not. You can't define it as red or blue. It is what it is in the moment. Much like Kamala said, you have to take it in the context by which it exists in its current moment. I think that it'll be nail biting. The last presidential election, I think it took us 5 days to get an accurate full vote tally going on here. And I think that this race is so much closer and so much more critical that we might not see, results, sorry, America, until Friday. I think that there will probably be a significant amount of recounts in certain counties because I think it'll come down to probably even closer than it was in some of the other swing states 4 years ago. But it might come down to, a 5,000 vote margin here. I think on the ground in Pittsburgh's pretty blue. Pittsburgh's pretty Democratic. So there's a lot of life here. I think driving around the city, I've seen in some of our city neighborhoods a lot more Trump signs than I think I did 4 years ago or 8 years ago. But, we are still holding out for a victory here for Kamala Harris. So I think that there's one on the horizon, possibly. We're at 50% of the vote now. I think Trump is like maybe a 0.7, I think, percentage point in the lead. I'm hoping that margin doesn't hold. I'm hoping that there are smaller counties out there with mail-in ballots, which are primarily Democratic ballots, and we'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of hope for Bob Casey, and I think that although Pennsylvania is a unique state, in 2016 you'll see that they voted. Pennsylvania went for Trump and Pat Toomey, while also going for all 3 row offices in the state as Democrats. So you have, the Republican headliners on the ticket and Democratic row officers. So I'm thinking that I'm hoping that we don't see that again. And so, there's hope.
Yeah. It will take me a little bit down ballot. So there are some key statewide races also on the ballot. AG, you got an auditor's race. How are those looking right now?
I haven't really been paying attention as much to the down ballot races. And we also have a treasurer's race. So we have our 3 state row officers are up for re-election again. You figure it kind of defies the racial gender boundaries. You have a black man, Republican, running against a LGBTQ black guy for the state auditor's race. You have 2 women who are running for the state treasurer's race. And then you have 2 white guys who are running for the attorney general's race. So there's a mix of a little bit of everybody running on these statewide ballots. And I don't think that we've had, as far as diversity is concerned, this many individuals of a diverse background running across the state at once. And so I think it most certainly changed the trajectory of how those races may turn out ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like the Democrats. Well, it's going back and forth, as does Pennsylvania. As I'm watching it live, I was gonna say Democrats were holding a lead in all 3. Now it's at this point the Republicans are holding in 2, Democrats in 1. So it looks like it's gonna be a back and forth for those races as well.
I mean, I think that, this is going to be one of those Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield fights for a political seat here. I think that, Pennsylvania is such a unique state because it is, I think, the fifth largest state in the country, the largest swing state by far, but also from a demographic kind of, what would you call it, overlook. The state is about 14% Latino, it's about 14% African American, which is hugely reflective of the population makeup of the country as a whole. And so, oftentimes, Pennsylvania finds itself in a very purple situation. And for once, we've seen ourselves as kind of all blue. Both of our senators currently are blue. Our governor's blue. For the first time in a very long time, we have a state house that's blue. But all these things are now back up on the drawing board to be reset again. And I'm just hoping that, our state is moving further into the future of what America looks like. But, I do understand that we have a lot of people who live in a lot of rural areas where coal is a big thing, where steel is a big thing. And I would say that if we don't do what Democrats hope is done in this election cycle, that it kind of be almost like a clarion call to the Democratic Party to say, where are we breaking down at, so that we can pull these individuals who used to be a bastion of Democratic, supporters back into this fold. Because I think ultimately it would be kind of like the writing on the wall for our party, saying there's something that we are not doing that's connecting to, the everyday blue collar worker. And so I would not like to see, the party go so far into, this kind of overly, college degree, doctor, engineer, lawyer kind of demographic, because I think that it will become more of a classist divide than it would be an actual divide based on, I think, belief.
Yeah, no, really important analysis as we think about, I think, the closing message that I think all of us have been spreading in the closing days of this campaign, but I'm sure also a lot about what we will think about as we get the results, one way or the other, where they come from and what we got to learn from it. So, Kevin, really great analysis, and always good seeing you.
Always good seeing you too.
Yeah. And Karen, Dylan, do you have any other questions for Kevin before we get another numbers update from Josh?
I don't, but Kevin, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you guys for having me. This is exciting. I'm hoping that the next time we talk, Marcus, we're congratulating each other on Kamala Harris becoming the first Black female president of the United States.
See you at the inauguration, brother.
All right. See you then. Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Bye.
All right, Josh, we got more numbers from across the nation. Tell us what we're looking at.
All right. Well, I actually want to stay in Pennsylvania for just a few minutes. Thank you, for the analysis so far. Thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate that. I'm looking at the kind of the county by county map here in Pennsylvania, and again, I think it's a similar story to what I've been telling the rest of the night, which is that we don't know much yet. And while we do know that there is going to be a little bit of a frustrating, if this is really close, it's going to be a little frustrating because we will have to wait a while in Pennsylvania because some of these votes are going to come in slow. But what I will say is that right now we're looking at a dead even race with 53% of the votes in. However, these are not evenly distributed across the Commonwealth. So if I'm looking at Philadelphia, for example, less than half of those votes are in. Delaware County. You remember in my Pennsylvania update, I gave an update on the collar counties. That's Delaware, Bucks, Montgomery, and Chester counties. These have barely come in. So Chester County, 11%. Montgomery County, 38%. Bucks, only 30%. So they're lagging behind the statewide reporting, which is one of the reasons why, again, it can be a little misleading just to see the top line numbers. But still feeling pretty good about Pennsylvania. And again, as a reminder for folks, I'm sure this has been hammered home in the news media in recent weeks, is that Pennsylvania is essentially the whole damn ball game. Okay, it is entirely possible to win without Pennsylvania, but it's very difficult. And Pennsylvania is a bit of a trendsetter. The sort of the traditional, what they call the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, almost always vote in tandem. So as one goes, often, so the rest go. So still watching Pennsylvania. Appreciate the in-depth analysis from our guests. I do want to touch on Michigan as well. So Michigan, we're only looking at 21% so far, and we're seeing a similar story. Very, very tight votes reporting so far. But I want to tell you exactly kind of what I'm looking at in Michigan. Polls closed there at 8 o'clock. Michigan, of course, is worth 16 electoral votes. So also a very, very critical battleground state. It was won by Donald Trump in 2016, won by Joe Biden in 2020. I think as far as what I'm looking at, I think the obvious answer here is Detroit. So the turnout metric to watch, I think obviously we know Vice President Harris is going to win a large margin in Detroit. What I think we need to look at instead is the mobilization, the turnout operation. If turnout exceeds 50%, then that's a really good sign for Democrats. It exceeded 50% in 2020, 2012, and 2008, all years in which the Democratic candidate won Michigan. Now, in 2016, when Hillary Clinton narrowly lost that state to Donald Trump, turnout was at 49%. So I think 50% is a good benchmark. Now, I will say one of the really positive indicators is that the city clerk in Detroit actually projected that by the end of the day, Detroit's turnout would have been at 51 to 55%, based on the early voting and absentee ballot numbers and some of the results tabulated earlier in the afternoon. This is not set in stone. We don't know the exact number yet, but that is a really positive indicator if it proves to be accurate in the end. One other thing that I'll mention about Michigan is I'm going to be looking at Saginaw County. Now, for folks who are not familiar with the geography of Michigan, Michiganders like to hold up their flattened hand. They call it the mitt, right? So you have the Upper Peninsula, and then you have the mitt, because it sort of looks like a mitten. Okay, so in Saginaw County, it's right about here. It's a very, very tight county, very closely divided. That's close to Lake Huron, comes up here, sort of between where my pointer finger and where my thumb meet. Trump won that county in 2016. Biden flipped it in 2020, winning it only by 303 votes. So extraordinarily tight. If Harris expands on the lead in this very, very tight county, that's going to tell us that she's doing better with working class white voters than Joe Biden did, which would bode well for her chances in the upper Midwest more generally. If she's lagging there, that's a worrying sign. Now, it of course suggests that she needs to make up those differences with the more college-educated demographics, which, we're going to see what turnout looks like in places like Ann Arbor. But I don't want to beat Michigan to death too much just yet, because I know we are going to bring on a guest to chat about how things are looking in Michigan at the moment. But I guess before I toss it back, are there any questions about sort of like numbers in the various states, what you're seeing, what to be looking for from anybody on the panel or audience?
Yeah, Josh, maybe just real quick on Arizona, just briefly. I know we've got about halfway in with the vice president having a very slight lead there. I know it's still early, and there's probably still big centers still left, but what are you seeing?
So first, I'll tell you what I'm looking for in Arizona. So Maricopa County is the big story in Arizona. Of course, that's where roughly 60% of all the votes are going to come from in the state. That's where Phoenix is, Tempe, very, very population-rich county. Now, there's some demographic challenges and benefits to watch here. Democrats, again, I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about Georgia. There has been survey evidence. The Democrats have ceded a little bit of ground to Republicans with young voters, particularly young men of color, who feel that the cost of living is too high, the education's too expensive, etc., which can hurt the incumbent party. And they also may just not have enough, as much context as like voters who have been around voting for several cycles, for some of these younger voters, Trump and Biden, or maybe just Biden, the only president that they've actually known as like politically conscious adults. Many of them were in elementary school when Trump took office, so can cause some of them to grow up with a very different idea about what a president is and how they should behave. So I know there is going to be a lot to look at with Arizona as the night goes on. I want to caution Arizona, because of the way they count mail-in and early votes, can take an extraordinarily long time. So there's a good chance that we may not know the results of Arizona for like 3-4 days. So if we are all waiting on Arizona to tell us who the winner is, it's going to be a long week. And same thing with Nevada. But I will say that right now, just kind of looking at the results here, Maricopa looks like with about half of the vote in, Kamala Harris has a narrow lead there, which is important. Pima County, that's where Tucson is. That's a bluer county. And Kamala Harris has about she's leading 63-37 in Pima. Coconino, which is in the northern part of the state, similar story, 63-36. Now, Donald Trump is running up the numbers in Northwest in Mojave County with 76% of the vote so far. And but that's expected. That's what he needs to do to stay competitive. So as it stands right now, we have very little to go off of. So what I will say is that these in-person votes are coming in fairly quickly in Arizona. We're already at 53% of the votes. But the reason I say it could take a long time is because they allow mail-in votes to come in significantly later. I think if I have it right, I think as long as your ballot arrives by the Saturday following election, it can be tabulated. So if it's close enough for mail-in ballots to matter, which is very, very possible, if not likely, then we're waiting for several days. But thanks for the question. Anything else? I think we may need to move on to stay on schedule. So I'll toss it back to MC.
Yeah, well, I'll take it to Detroit, right? So I didn't mean to detour us in Maricopa County. I know we were talking about Michigan before, but we've got Donovan McKinney, Representative Donovan McKinney, from the great state of Michigan. How are you, brother?
I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. Excited. Man, like we got some good early returns here in Michigan. Just to let you guys know, one of our state affiliates, one of our state newspapers came out and called our Supreme Court races for the Dems. So Justice Kyra Harris Bowden, who was appointed by the governor, she ran last cycle. I came up a little bit short, but this time won alongside Democratic candidate Kimberly Ann Thomas. So that is amazing, good news. And I'm in Macomb County right now, just north of Detroit, in my district, which is one of those toss-up counties. And we're getting some early returns on the county commission races, some state rep races, and everything's looking on the up and up. So hopefully, in totality, if you extrapolate that statewide, Dems will run the gambit, take it all up and down the ticket. So good early returns, but we'll see. We'll see how the night goes.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems like every cycle Michigan has critical races up and down the ballot, especially and with the narrow majorities. Even in your chamber of the legislature, I know you're thinking about all of your colleagues as well. So we're definitely watching those. And great news about the Supreme Court race. People did endorse Kyra Harris Bolden for that seat, and so we're glad that she's gonna remain on the court. That's a critical seat there.
She's the first Black woman ever to hold that position on the Supreme Court here in Michigan. So it was great, and she was a little worried. I talked to her a couple days ago, but we knew she would get it. She's been working hard, and a lot of supporters like you guys, a lot of partners and stakeholders put in the work for her to get across this hump. So we're excited, really excited.
Yeah, well, just real quick, I know we talked a little bit throughout the night just about how critical the margin of in terms of black voters will be, and I
Yeah.
think we talked about population centers like Detroit, and I think black population centers across Michigan and across the country that are going to be critical for the vice president. You've been out on the trail with the vice president. You've been
Yes.
campaigning. You've been a surrogate. What's it felt like in the closing days? What's resonated with people as a closing message, and what's made you so confident going into today?
Yeah. So what resonated in the closing days was people realizing that not only democracy is at stake, but our whole life as we know it is at stake if the other side wins. And so we don't want to paint a grave picture. However, we always discuss Project 2025, and people started to realize, like, man, if Trump gets in office or if certain people get in office, they will implement certain policies and procedures and just different laws that will hinder your ability as an American citizen to be able to thrive in our country and in our cities and in our states. So, and then the young people. I've talked to a lot of Gen Zers. I'm the youngest black currently serving in the state legislature right now in Michigan, and my goal was to inspire them to really think bigger than themselves and understand that their voices and what they would like to see and what we all deserve in terms of good elected officials and good public policy can happen. You just have to utilize the ballot box in order to do it, and it's just one tool in the toolbox. However, it's an important tool and we must exercise it and use it every single election cycle. So people started to wake up, and I'm excited because Michigan is the first time in a presidential election that we have early voting in our state. So we surpassed, we broke records in Michigan. We also broke records. I was on the polls today all across Metro Detroit area, in Detroit, as well as in the suburbs of Oakland and Macomb County. And the lines are packed. Every single polling location I was at 12 polling locations today. So, we're excited. I think when turnup's high, we win every time, every single time.
Yeah. Well, we're looking for some great turnout in favor of the vice president, and obviously critical races up and down the ballot. It looks like Slotkin. What's that race looking like running away?
Stocking, yeah, I think she's going to be good. Like, I'm heading downtown Detroit in the next few minutes to go celebrate and go to the election night watch party with her and Vice President Kamala Harris's team, and the Governor Whitmer and the Speaker of the House and the whole crew. So I'm excited about that to be able to celebrate. But it's looking good. Like, the early returns are looking good. We'll see. Michigan is tricky. However, I think we've done enough and we've all done a good job at just getting the vote out. And like I said before, the higher the turnout, the better we do as Democrats. But in reality, we looked at some of the returns in Macomb County, and in northern Macomb County, it was some good turnout, but not as good as the southern parts of the county, which are like the more populated areas and the more Democratic areas. So, it looks good. Like I said before, the more we vote, the more we turn out, the more we win. So I'm just excited to see, and I'm hoping, because we have a 1-seat majority in the state house. I'm hoping that every single member or returning members come back. But more importantly, I'm hoping to expand that majority in the state house, because 1 seat is not enough. Any one of us can be like a Kristen Sinema or a Joe Manchin and just hold up something because we don't like it. But if we can get 62 seats, which is like a 5 to 7 seat majority, we can do a lot more, not only progressive agenda, but things that need to get done that have been, talked about for a long time, but haven't gotten done yet. So we're excited, man. We're excited.
Yeah. No, really, really excited for you. We've been seeing you do the hard work, and we've got faith it's going to pay off tonight in a big way, not just for Michigan, but really in favor of the whole country. So, again, Donovan, thank you so much for your hard work, both on the trail, but also in the state house. We know that you're leading many fights that's changing people's lives. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, and thank you to the whole panel. Mandela, I see you, my brother, all the way in Wisconsin, man. So,
Yeah.
hey, you guys bring it home. I know Michigan is looking good right now. Hopefully, Wisconsin can bring it home too.
Yeah, yes, sir. We got a narrow race in Wisconsin. So Mandela, you tell us what's going on. We've got some early numbers in at least.
Yeah, to be very honest, it is a narrow race everywhere. And I I don't want to show up throwing a wet blanket, you know what I mean? But I do want to keep things in perspective. Like, this shit is way too close, and it is very frustrating. I am, I do feel good about what's. I feel good about the program we run. In the Power to the Polls office now. Some of our organizers are coming back. We had over 700, maybe 800, at least close to 800, for sure 700 people organizers out there all day today. I'm also leading a C3 effort as well, where we had a lot of folks out there just registering new voters. And so I do feel good about the program we've run. I am I have a tracker right now. I have a tracker in like 16 tabs at the moment, as many of us do. We have about 45% of Milwaukee votes in, 77% of Dane County votes in, over 94% of crucial Waukesha County votes in. The county you hear a whole lot about. She has slightly outperformed Biden so far in Waukesha County, but we're still having. We're having a lot of ground to make up in Brown County, but that's only at 24%. Outagamie at 43%. So those are 5 biggest counties. And, we still have our early votes. There were some ballots that had to be recounted because of a minor error. And luckily, we don't get to say this often, but the chair of the Republican Party of Milwaukee County, he has gone out there publicly said that there was no foul play here. This is just a minor error. So that is getting the recount is just and it's just recounting 31,000 absentee ballots. With that being said, it's just out of an abundance of caution, and that was done in consultation with both Democrats and Republicans. So we're good there. It's just like delays the process even more about when our votes will actually be fully counted. I mean, I'm expecting a long night. I'm already already have my energy drink. Will likely have another. I'm obviously, if it's not just completely visible by my face, I am a little bit concerned, and I would be lying if I said that we all shouldn't be concerned right now. I wish I was here with much better news. I mean, we all have our screens up. We see the numbers rolling in across the country, and some states that thought we would have performed better than in. It just has not happened yet to this point. I do still remain optimistic. I do still see a path here in Wisconsin for us to win this thing, and it is going to be. It's just going to be too close for comfort. Certainly, it's one of those things too where I wish that the turnout, I wish that the results match the enthusiasm that we have seen. And right now, I mean, even the New York Times forecaster has us as the most likely tipping point state. A thing that I have always said, and not just saying it to raise money either, right? Saying it because it is the truth, and it was always going to come down to Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. But it will be much better if we were all three on the same accord, going for Kamala Harris. Tammy Baldwin's race, this is the closest race she's ever had so far. In 2018, the last time she was on the ballot, I think that her race was called maybe 10 minutes after polls closed, 10, 15 minutes after polls closed. So certainly a difference here. And I'm looking for a question. I thought I saw, so maybe not. I thought I saw a question, but I guess not. Sorry about that. Yeah, I guess I didn't see the question. Well, regardless, just stay tuned. Hold on to your seats because we're definitely going to be in for a long night. Something we always knew, but the programs that have been run here have been phenomenal here on the ground, and I think that is that's the rest of my update. Because if I ramble more, I'm going to end up rambling into a bad place. So
No, that was a really thorough update about, I think, both what's been happening on the ground, and to your point, there's been a lot of enthusiasm in the closing days, but also just an accurate analysis of what's happening in real time up and down the ballot. So we do really appreciate it. Karen Dillon, do you have any questions for Mandela about what might be happening on the ground in Wisconsin?
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to, because I know we're talking about being hopeful. How are, the people feeling? I know you saying that you're holding out that little bit of hope, but overall, what is the general vibe?
Oh, it's a lot of hope. I'm still optimistic. The general vibe has been great. People are excited. The enthusiasm is very real. There has been incredible student turnout. I got to give a huge shout out to the Wisco project, just simply because, not just simply, one, the director of the Wisco project worked for me she worked on my campaign, also ran my PAC for a bit of time. But the organization is really doing a lot of great, unique work on campuses. In 2018, we had the highest youth voter turnout in the entire country, largely due to, just increase in turnout on college campuses. And we are likely to see that trend continue here, which, could make or break the election, or could make or break the election and decide the presidency.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, we want to thank you, Mandela, for that update. I know that you're busy keeping up with what's going on the ground minute by minute. We thank you for pausing to walk us through it as we're watching these results and really working through that with us in real time. And we'll obviously check in with you, but we're remaining hopeful about Wisconsin because, like you said, you've been working hard out there. So many people have, and so we're still optimistic it's going to pay off. So thank you.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
For sure. All right, I think I'm going to pass to Karen. I think we're going to talk about Georgia soon.
Yeah, we can talk about Georgia. I'm going to ask that we really, really dumb this down for me. Like and there were some questions in the chat that came up, and one of them, so I want to ask you how your outlook was 2 hours ago when we started the call versus where you are now. Have you remained, or has it changed? Personally, I feel a little more nervous, but I don't know if it's just me or if it's
So I think that's totally fair. I think what we're seeing, of course, first, as expected, that the southern states, the southern battlegrounds, are coming in first, the most quickly. So talking about North Carolina and Georgia. Now, there have been a couple of different demographic narratives going into this election. One, that the GOP is picking up margins, picking up support, or at least picking off some of the support for Democrats amongst sort of a multiracial working class demographic pool. And that does seem to be something that we are seeing, which is making it more challenging in places where Democrats sort of were ascendant in the last few cycles in places like Georgia and North Carolina. So I will say that neither the AP, at least that I've seen, neither the AP has called these southern battleground states, although the Decision Desk, a pretty reputable polling organization, has actually called North Carolina for Donald Trump. Now, this was probably, going into the night, the most challenging pickup for Democrats. It is the one that has remained stubbornly Republican in all of recent American history, except for in 2008. when Barack Obama won at that time. Georgia's looking more difficult now than it was a couple of hours ago. What I will say is that there are still a good amount of votes that are left in some of the bluer districts, in particularly Chatham, in Savannah, near Macon, and some of the Atlanta suburbs and exurbs. However, most of them are in, particularly in Gwinnett County. This is the most population-rich that is remaining in the Atlanta metro area. We have about 77% of those in. So right now, with about a 3-point lead for Donald Trump, it is looking like a significantly uphill battle for Kamala Harris to catch up. There's nothing called until it's called. It is still possible, but it is looking less likely, unfortunately. I think what this tells us is what we saw, what indications we saw from this Des Moines Register poll that came out just a few days ago from Ann Selzer, the legendary pollster, who showed Kamala Harris significantly making up ground with the demographics in Iowa and in the upper Midwest, white, largely white women and white college-educated middle-class, upper-class communities. Now, that is not to say that that Kamala Harris will win Iowa. That's, in fact, some outlets have already called Iowa for Donald Trump. However, we do see some tightening in the upper Midwest. And so I think what we're seeing now is that the narrative that there are two pathways to the presidency, the blue wall and the Sun Belt, is proving to be kind of apt. It looks like some of the Sun Belt is moving in tandem, but the blue wall remains a place where it seems there is still some strength for the Democratic ticket. So I think at this point, the best path that Vice President Harris has to the presidency is to attempt to take Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin by these very narrow margins that we're expecting to deliver the 270 electoral votes. And if she wins nothing but the blue wall, then that gets her. Then that gets her to 270. So to address your question directly, I think I came into this with an open mind, and now the pressure's on, and the early results from the night are not in our favor. At least the calls that have been made by the AP. That does not mean this is over. So I would just encourage folks to stay calm and again, trust the process. There's nothing we can do. All the polls are closed. There's nothing we can do until we get the results. So all we can do is continue to watch. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, no, and Josh, I really appreciate that, because I think I'm personally much better if it's like, give it to me straight, because it doesn't mean like, we're giving up, but I like to feel, that I'm coming at something from a place of reality. So this is good. And I'm going to say it again. We said at the beginning, we will need people to be involved and to help protect our democracy when this is over. Right. So God forbid, Donald Trump is elected president, we're going to need each other. Right. So the calls like this, connecting with groups like People for the American Way, Defense of Democracy, we're going to become even more important and critical.
Yeah, sure. I think that's right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Josh. Yeah, I was going to say thanks, Josh, for that. I think we're also going to take a quick look at Texas. I know that the Senate race there has been called. But Dylan, you want to talk a little bit about what we might be seeing from Texas and introduce our guests from the ground?
Yeah, so we have Catherine coming on. I'm really glad to have you here. And I was just wondering if you could, just tell us what's going on in Texas. Like, what are the vibes like? Do you have any good news at all? Good news.
Unfortunately, it's kind of as the polls were predicting. You know, we were hoping for a Harris kind of blue wave, but we haven't seen that yet. You know, of course, the rural counties have not been counted yet. The results are 73% total, I think, right now. So I guess there's a little bit of hope, but not much. Cruz declared victory at some party. But, you know, Texas is heavily gerrymandered. It's full of voter suppression. We've seen that in Tarrant County, where I am, quite a bit. Our county commissioner's main polling place was vandalized last night. We've had lots of different examples of voting machines not working in black polling places, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not surprising, but it is disappointing. Yeah. We do have Mark Vesey that won. We have Jasmine Crockett, who won with 80%. You know, she's the one who went up against Marjorie Taylor Greene and won in that little exchange they had. So, yeah, there are pockets of Democrats. In fact, the state is 60-40 Republican. So it's not a, you know, a lot of the Democrats say that if we get some money from the National Democratic Party, we could do a lot better here. And the margin isn't huge. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in future elections, maybe they'll put some more into it. The cities in Texas are Democrat for sure, except for Fort Worth, which is where I am. It's still Republican. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
You have better news.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll say, I mean, to your point, there definitely are signs of life in terms of progressive activism on the ground in Texas, and I think this election will teach us a lot, both the wins and the losses here. Colin, I think, led a great campaign there, and I think, you know, generated a lot of energy, and so I think, to your point, with hopefully a little more investment, we can tip the balance in states that are clearly ripe for change, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you. Any other questions? I apologize, from our panel on the ground in Texas.
Yeah, real quick. I was wondering, do you have anything about regarding specific to school boards? You know, where you live?
Not specifically, they were not in the election,
Okay.
but I will tell you that vouchers, the Texas House is, the governor he primaried a bunch of rural Texas House members in order to get the vouchers voted for in this upcoming legislative session. So there is some hope. People are going to be pressuring as much as we can some of the moderate Republicans on that issue. But I did read that Dave Phelan, who is a moderate Republican and has been part of the holding the line against vouchers, is probably not going to be the Speaker of the House. We've got David Cook here in Mansfield, who's being touted as the new Speaker. So that's yet to be seen, but that's the word.
Yeah, well, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, no, we appreciate you so much for joining us. We're going to continue to watch so many races up and down the ballot. I know there's critical races up and down the ballot, so we'll keep watching. But we thank you for the update, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks. You betcha.
So we're about 2 minutes away from polls closing in many states in the West, and so by and large, we'll have generally, with the exception of Alaska and Hawaii, a full map to analyze and follow. I'm sure for the next several hours and the next days into the next days. But wanted to, as we kind of enter the kind of last hour of polls being open, about how you all are feeling, Dylan, Karen, as we I think go into the I guess the rough ride part, right? I think we've been waiting on all the polls to close to get some early indicators in states, and now we just kind of got to ride the wave. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Me here in Ohio, the nerves are, the nerves are up. I'm being realistic with the way things are looking. I know as of right now, Moreno is still in the lead here, and it is still technically too close to call. According to MSNBC, we still have time left. Things could still change. You never know. Things could go either way. So I am trying to hold on to that hope, but I am being realistic and acknowledging that there's a chance that things could take a turn that way. At least here, like I mentioned earlier, I am taking the small win, with my my congressional district. And I think that's one thing that we can all take a look at. Like, how are our own districts looking? I don't know. Karen, if you have anything positive to add where you are in New York, please.
I mean, I'm, I had the Senate candidate who I wanted to win doesn't look like she's going to win. Yvette Valdez Smith. She worked so hard, and I canvassed beside her. Again, it's close, and I'm glad it's close because she was running against an established candidate, but I'm frustrated. And you know what? I'm like probably going through all the stages of grief right now. It's like I want to remain hopeful, but I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like I came into this feeling discouraged, and I'm really kind of angry. I think I'm kind of angry, even if it does turn out like please, like if we end up with Kamala Harris for a president, it should never have been this tight, and I'm frustrated and disappointed in that. And I certainly don't know people within my circle who could have worked any harder than they did. But I'm also I'm also someone who says like, if this is the way our country is going, this is the way it's going. You know what I mean? Like this is the democratic process. People turned out to vote. If we get Donald Trump for president, we have to live with Donald Trump for president, and everybody's going to have to pay the price for that. But before I go down that road, I want to remain optimistic and just keep an eye on the places where there is that hope. So which of the swing states at this point have been called? Have any of them been called yet? Or are we just kind of looking and saying, oh, North Carolina just doesn't look great, but it's not called? Is that kind of where we're at?
All of the key states are still too close to call, I think, as we expected at the beginning of the night. But I think, the point of this was to, I think, try to get a clue from the early indicators about, where we did well and where we might have fallen short. And I think we're getting close to at least a picture of where we're headed, but there's still votes to be counted. And in all of the key states, there's no calls yet. So there's no path, at least at this stage, to 270 for either candidate.
Yeah, Marcus, real quick. I know you're really involved in all of this, so I want to know how you're feeling. I know you've been asking everyone else, how are you feeling about how things are going tonight?
Yeah, started, well, I've started this last week very optimistic, being on the ground in so many key battleground states, being with voters who were motivated to get out and really seize this moment to do better for the country. And but I think was always naturally nervous. I think like most folks in my generation, I voted for the first time for Barack Obama, but I also witnessed 2016, and so I know, I know that both are possible, right? That us coming together to show, the best of who we are is possible, and sometimes, letting division and hatred win the day is sometimes that half step backwards that we've taken many times throughout our history. But I was hopeful and still am hopeful about today. My grandmother, who lives a few blocks from me, is 98 years old, born into segregation in rural Virginia, who has, been able to see through her life the election of a black president and voted a couple weeks ago on an early ballot for Kamala Harris. And so I'm still hopeful because I want this moment, I think, most of all for her. And I think I'm still hopeful that we're gonna achieve that.
Yeah, I do want another quick comment. Obviously, as you can tell, I am a young person. I was a first-time voter this election. I personally, I did vote for Kamala Harris. But I feel like a big accomplishment, no matter what has happened, is that we've gotten so many college students and young people to come out and put in the work and get out and vote. And I feel like no matter what happens, mobilizing young people, that is a big achievement, and that we should celebrate that. I know that I was surprised to see. I had friends who weren't sure if they were going to vote, what their plans were. And, I've seen so many people who were unsure go out and get to the polls. And I feel like, just those wins, they still count. I feel like we should take a look at some of those smaller achievements, take a step back from that whole big picture for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Karen's point, there's a fight after this, and what we saw even in the wake of 2016 was a massive outpouring of activism, of young leaders, of a new generation of leadership that I think became a resistance that I think has help democracy hold right through a Trump administration. And I've got full confidence that whatever the outcome tonight, we're going to do it again. And I think we're going to, hear from a couple other folks about why they voted through some video submissions. I think Meg might have those queued up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Midge Noble, and I'm the host of the Gay with God podcast, and also wrote a memoir called Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith and Honoring My Story. And let me tell you about why I voted. I voted because, one, it's a gift. We have the gift to vote. In our own lifetime, there were people who were not allowed to vote. Then they had to pay a poll tax in order to make their vote count, and they had to pass all sorts of jumps and hoops to get their vote in. We have been gifted with this moment of clarity where we get to choose who we're going to vote for. And I am proud to place my vote as a out gay woman who has a wife and a family and a job that I love that I can do in a free country and a free democracy. I am voting for all of those who never could. I am voting for all those who should. I am voting for all those who want to have their voice known as much as I want to have my voice known. Voting is a privilege, and it is my way to say that I cast my vote for Kamala Harris because I believe in democracy. I believe in freedom of reading whatever we want to read without it being banned. I believe in all gay kids being able to reach out to adults and say, I need to talk to you about this. I'm confused, or I'm scared, or my parents don't get it. I'm voting for all those people who are disenfranchised with images and rhetoric that may not be true and most often is not true. I'm voting for every bullied, marginalized person who is being terrorized with laws that are archaic and terrorized with the fear that my marriage will be gone, that we may get deported out of this country because we're not evangelical enough. I am gay with God, and I deserve to be gay with God. I deserve to go to church. I deserve to praise God. I deserve to call God whatever I want to call God. I deserve to kneel if I'm upset and I'm trying to protest silently. I deserve to have all the rights and freedoms of this country, and yet we don't yet. So I am voting for Kamala Harris to keep that door of freedom open, and I am proud to do it. And I hope everybody else is too. Namaste. And let's vote for democracy.
Incredible. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you. And we're going to hop to another incredible voice who's doing incredible work on the ground. And we talked a little bit earlier about Arizona. We've got Shelly on the line. Shelly, Arizona, 50% of the vote reporting, and the margin is 50-50. What's it feel like on the ground? How are you feeling in this moment?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep, sound great.
Okay, great. I am so sorry. There has been so many technical difficulties. I'm currently at an election night party with tons of canvassers and people involved.
Oh, I think we might have lost Shelly.
Well, that is what that technical difficulty looks like.
Right, exactly. Well, if she comes back, we'll definitely check in with her on the ground. But just a quick update.
Looks like she might be popping back. Yep.
I'm
Shelly?
so yes.
Can you hear us? There
I
we go.
can hear you. Yeah, so I'm with volunteers and canvassers who have been on the ground. Here on the IE side, they have knocked over 6.6 million doors here in Arizona. And so it feels incredible. I think people are excited, and in Arizona, it takes a while to count. And so we're also knowing that tonight is not going to be the end all be all, and we'll have our teams ready on the ground to do ballot curing and chasing ballots for the next few days as well.
Yeah, I mean, what are you hearing in terms of kind of rumors or plans in terms of kind of election, challenges from the right? Oh, might have lost Shelly again, but we'll definitely ask that question if she comes back. But Arizona, very close races. We'll also take a look when we do a finals numbers check with Josh on kind of how the numbers are looking in that Senate race. Oh, but Shelly, you're back. Yeah, you can go ahead. Can you hear us?
Yes, you asked how it was. I'm so sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, what was it? What did I now I've missed now I forgot it. You saying is about the election challenges. So are you hearing any rumors about election challenges already planned by the far right?
Yeah, so we have had a couple just like narrative challenges even before the election day came of Republicans trying to really undermine the election process. And so really what's happening is that they are trying to instill misinformation and disinformation about how secure the elections are. There were a few ballots that went out late, but when I say late, I want to remind you that in Arizona, early voting started in early October. And so what happened was a few people got ballots on a week later instead of 2 days after the early voting started. And it created this whole narrative that meant that people were not going to get their ballots at all. That's not exactly what happened, and people did in fact get their ballots, but we have seen that they have used that as an opportunity to instill fear, because I think that they are scared, rightfully so, because of the great work that's been happening on the ground. So more of a narrative push, if anything.
Yeah. Any races in particular you're looking at right now as maybe indicators, or just particular races you think are important for the progress of the state?
Yeah, so in Arizona, not only are we a battleground for the presidential, but we also have the opportunity to flip the legislator this year. We've been having this opportunity for the last couple of years or last few election cycles. So one race that I'm looking at in particular is LD 23, Legislative District 23. This district covers about 3 different counties, including Yuma County. This county is what I like to call the battleground of a battleground. It is right next to the border in Arizona. It is a district that Trump only won by less than 10,000 votes the last time he ran. And it is also an important district to be able to potentially flip the legislator. And so that is a race that I'm keeping a close eye on. Legislative District 4 is another one. Again, another opportunity to flip the legislator there, as well as Legislative District 13. The good thing is that for some of these, they're still looking close, and we still have lots of votes to count. So there's lots of opportunities here in Arizona to make some change.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely monitoring those races up and down the ballot. We know we endorsed in several races with the hopes that we can flip the legislature there, both houses, with very narrow margins. So still holding out hope there. And thank you for the update from the ground.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I apologize for the technical difficulties as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. All right. I think we are going to be joined by our Executive Vice President, Marge Baker, who, as we begin to kind of close out our analysis of the night, before we get to before we go back to Josh for kind of our final run of the numbers, as we get close to a full map, just wanted to ask you, Marge, how are you feeling?
So I tell you, I first of all, I have to say, I have been so impressed listening to everyone on this call and watching the chat. It is so incredible to be part of this community of committed folks who really care about our democracy, who really care about their fellow community members, their fellow Americans, who really want to make this an inclusive democracy for all of us. And the voices I've heard all night are just so inspiring, and I just want to appreciate everyone for being there and for the fight everyone is making for our democracy. I'll be honest, this is not the way I hoped tonight would be. I hoped that we would have a real clear, robust win for democracy and for the Harris-Walz team and the Senate, and then all of the down ballot races. I want to create a little bit of perspective, though. It's helping me think through this, as Josh has so well said, and I think he will help us understand. This is absolutely not over. Think back to what it felt like in 2020. It's almost exactly where we were, right? We weren't sure. It takes a while to count these votes. We have to create the space for the votes to be counted. We need to make sure everybody's vote is counted. And then we also had to be prepared for, if the results don't happen, to take stock of where we are, allow ourselves the space to absorb what's happened, and then to resist whatever it is that we know is going to come down the pike. And that's who we are. We will fight for our democracy. Hopefully we will fight with Kamala Harris and Vice President Walz for a better democracy. But whatever happens, we've just got to keep fighting. We've got to resist. We've got to fight for the America we believed in. And the one thing I will say, not to do that for me, at least personally, would be to dishonor the incredible, incredible effort that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and all the people working so hard in this fight for our democracy. It would be to dishonor that effort if we don't take stock and then do whatever we need to do, depending upon what happens in the election. So I'm still hopeful, and looking forward to Josh's roundup. I think we are kind of where we were in 2020, and so we have to see how create the opportunity and the space, and to make sure that all the votes are counted. And then we just need to be able to go forward, and if it's a fight to build a democracy, I love that. If it's a fight to protect our democracy and resist efforts to undermine our democracy, then we have to be in that fight too.
That's right. No, really powerful reflection, Marge. We definitely have to stick together. This is not the end, and it would be derelict for sure if we sat on our hands and let this moment pass us by without doing everything we can to drag the progress out of whatever comes out of this election. So,
right.
No,
We've built such community, especially over the last several months. We've built such community around the fight for our democracy. We need to hold on to that.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to say that if you are looking for that community after today, after tonight, after all the votes are counted, to continue organizing on our end, and I'll make sure Karen and Dylan can do the same. Please do join us at people4.org. Get involved with us, sign up to take action. The work we do is not all around elections. It's about the days, every day after, what we do to make sure that we hold folks accountable, what we do to make sure that we advance our values. And we did it under a Trump administration. We did it under a Biden administration, and we'll do it in the next one. So Karen, Dylan, why don't you tell folks how they can also get involved?
Yeah. Defense of Democracy is very much a grassroots organization. So by getting involved, you will be working with and mobilizing and connecting with volunteers in your communities. To get involved with Defense of Democracy, it's defenseofdemocracy.org, and just look to our Get Involved tab and click for our online virtual orientation. It takes about 20 minutes, and you go ahead and take that, and then you'll be invited to join us every Tuesday night. We have a call, strategy sessions, workshops, and there really is a place for everyone. I often say, if you have a skill or something you enjoy doing, we will find a way to weaponize it so that we can protect democracy with it. So that's how you can get in touch with us. I just want to bring up in the chat, why doesn't the state of the race map show the electoral totals? I am just seeing that Trump was called for North Carolina, but yes. I don't know if Josh is coming on to talk about that.
Yep. Yeah, we're about to have Josh on in a second, but we're actually going to have Meg on, who's joining us as well. As we're closing out our reflections, Meg, you've been running the show for the last 3.5, 4 hours.
Something like that.
Making sure that we are updated, that we're staying on track, and that we could create this space for folks to be together in this moment, knowing that the margins were going to be close no matter what, and that we needed, more than anything, we needed each other. And so just wanted to give you an opportunity to reflect on what, first and foremost, what curating this event has meant for you, but just more broadly, what this moment means for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody. It's nice to meet you. I'm Meg Simons with People of the American Way. I'm our digital strategy manager. So, every time you like a tweet and every time you leave a rude comment, I see both of them. But what...
She's got the block button.
Yeah, I am very good with the block button, so watch yourself. But the reason I wanted to talk to y'all today, and the reason I wanted to come out from behind the camera, is because digital organizing and living on the internet can be rough, right? But it's where my heart is. It's where bringing people together, making these complex policy issues simple for people is where my heart has always been. And that's for a reason, right? It's because I grew up queer and poor in Texas in the South, and then moved to Maryland, where I live now with my wife. And the range of perspectives and all the different people I've met in my life. Thinking about this election, it's really easy to get lost in this idea, and especially me, like experiencing this as a queer person from the South, this idea of like, how can this large, swath of the country, it starts to feel like is dangerous or hates you, or how can people come to this conclusion, right? And first of all, I want to remind you of one thing. Just like Marge just said, we don't know anything yet. I would like to remind you all, in 2020, I went to bed thinking Donald Trump had won and woke up to Joe Biden winning, right? Like, the numbers are not in yet. We have time. There are votes still being counted. And I know I'm probably stealing Josh's closing lines right now. But there is no decision yet. And it can be really easy to feel disheartened right now. But I want to tell you a little bit about my family. So, and they don't know I'm doing this, so if they're watching, leave. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about my family. So my mom, dad, and grandmother are all in Texas. They were all loyal Republican voters. In 2016, I know at least 2 of them voted for Trump and Ted Cruz. In 2016, I wasn't out to my family yet. My wife wasn't out to our family yet. And over the course of between 2016 and 2024, my wife and I have both come out to our family. We have had really tough conversations about what those votes meant to us, what having them vote, kind of trying to understand why these people who we know love us made this choice, right? Because it can feel irreparable sometimes. But we have to remember that when we connect with each other on a person-to-person level, we can make change. But the phrase that immediately came to mind is like, move hearts and minds. And I know that's really corny, but don't come for me right now. It's late, right? Like, we can make a difference when we can set aside all the messaging, right, that's coming at us, and just connect with people, whether it's through a computer screen or whether it's at Thanksgiving, which I know is going to be a lot for a lot of people, no matter which way this goes, or at any holiday coming up, right? But we have to do that work. And at its core is organizing, right? We have to have those tough conversations with our friends and our family. We have to tell them how these votes make us feel. We have to listen to their reasons for why they voted, because a lot of them feel a really strong way about this, right? It's not fun to listen, but we can't give up on each other. And we can't give up on this moment. And I will now say that from 2016 to 2024, my grandmother, my mother, and my father all went out and voted for Kamala Harris. You can make a difference. If all of us are able to move 5 people, imagine, if you can get 5 people to sell your MLM products, you can be a millionaire, right? Imagine what we can do if we can do that kind of organizing work for democracy. I know it's easy to give into the hopelessness. And I know it can feel so overwhelming when it feels like your neighbors are voting against your very existence. But I want to get on here and say there is a path forward if we continue investing in each other. And no matter what happens tomorrow, probably at this point, or later this week, no matter which way this election goes, how tight this election is shows us that we need to invest in each other. And so I want to encourage you to take care of yourselves tonight. I want to encourage you to take care of your families. And I want to encourage you to do things that fulfill your spirit, because we have a lot of tough conversations ahead of us. And especially I'm calling in those people that look like me, right? The numbers don't lie. We have a lot of tough conversations ahead of us. And it's on us to have those conversations to build the future we want. And it is possible. Those conversations are possible and they can be positive, but they can't happen if we give up.
Yeah, I do want to hop in real quick.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just being overly, optimistic with things, but something I've realized over the past couple weeks is we're all doing what we think is right. And we're not so different after all. Like, we're all doing what we think is going to be the best for everyone. And so I think it's important, when we're having these difficult conversations with each other, is to remember that, to take things with a grain of salt, because for the most part, with most people, as you know, in this type of work, you realize we're not always so different from each other. I know that's a big thing with Defense of Democracy is there's a lot of similarities, and just to remember that, we're all doing what we think is right, and to listen and to try and have those really good conversations with people, because that is how we do move things forward.
Yeah. And for those of you who are deep in it tonight, I want you to remember you have this community right here. You have your friends and family at Defense of Democracy. You have your friends and family at People for the American Way. And we're not going anywhere. And we're here when you need us. And we'll keep holding these kinds of community events to bring us all together, because we are in this fight together. And so even when it feels lonely and scary and you want to give up, I want to remind you, we're here, you're loved, and we're going to get through this together. And now I'm going to send it to Josh to give us all numbers that make us scared and depressed. But when he does that, I want you to remember what I said, okay? We're here. We're not going anywhere. And we're going to get through this together.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thanks, Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Josh, I know is hopping on to give us just a final analysis. So like we said, all the polls from east to west, other than obviously our cousins in Alaska and Hawaii, the polls are closed. And then I think we've still got some polls, some results not out at all in Nevada, but the polls are closed there as well. So Josh, let us know what we're looking at, and just set the stage for what we should be looking at as we go to bed, when we wake up in the morning, and just what people should be watching right now.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. And just, wow, I mean, to follow up, Meg, I appreciate you being so vulnerable. And I think speaking to what so many of us are feeling tonight, whether you're here in the office, whether you're tuning in from home, whether you're someone who's in the coalition fight, or you love someone who is, or you know that your life and well-being is at stake, or someone that you love, or just a neighbor. I think it's worth remembering, what Meg said about coming to organizations like ours who are here to support vulnerable folks, all over the place. No matter what happens after this week is so important. We don't do this work because we're political junkies, because we think it's fun, because it's a game. We do it because we care about people, about protecting people, about uplifting people. And so, we've been in dark places before, and we're scrappy. We know how to fight. So to get to the numbers, the reason I actually got asked to talk and not to do my own monologue is to talk about where we go from here. So I think what we're seeing, again, as I mentioned during my last numbers update, is that this theory of the two paths to the presidency is proving to be true tonight. That there is a Rust Belt, blue wall path, and a Sun Belt or Southern path. It appears from the trends that Democrats, that Vice President Harris, her campaign is struggling in some of these southern states so far. Now I want to say that the AP has not called Georgia. Obviously, the AP has called North Carolina for Donald Trump. Where we do not have nearly enough data yet to make any assumptions about what's going to happen are the blue wall states. So we do not know nearly enough about Wisconsin, about Michigan, about Pennsylvania. If I'm looking at Michigan, for example, almost none of the votes are in yet from Detroit. So if you're seeing, 51 to 47, we don't have anything from Detroit yet. Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, that's about 2/3 of the way in. We've got some Upper Peninsula that's not in. Kent County, a battleground where Kamala Harris is leading, still not in. So I think if there is a path to the presidency for Vice President Harris, we're now probably looking at a coalition of electoral votes put together by reassembling the so-called blue wall. And this is going to take some time. We may know those in the wee hours. We may not know them for a couple of days. Depends on how close it is. But I feel comfortable saying that we're not going to know who's won the presidential election before we go to bed. So what I would just say is to strap in, to watch the upper Midwest, to, of course, wait for Arizona and Nevada to bear out their results. Despite the fact that Georgia has not been called, it does look like it's difficult for Vice President Harris to make up ground there. So I really do feel like the fight at this point cuts across the upper Midwest and the Southwest. I will say that there have been some bright moments this evening that I think are worth acknowledging. A number of states have formally enshrined the right to an abortion into their state constitutions, placing a stake in the ground, protecting women, protecting people who can bear children, and ensuring that bodily autonomy is the law of the land in these states. And also, in no small historic feat, Delaware this evening has elected the first openly transgender person to the United States Congress in our nation's history. These victories are not small. They're not tokens. This is a sign of progress, of moving the needle, even in dark moments. And I'm not ready to call this night dark yet. I'm not ready to call this week dark because there's still so much that's left to be counted, still so much work left to do. But I think if there are specific questions, I'm happy to address those. But I think I feel comfortable in saying that unfortunately we're not going to know tonight. So my best advice is to do something which sounds cheesy and obvious, but please take care of yourselves. You're no good to anybody if you're not well rested, if you're not nourished, if you're not socially connected. So make sure that you take care of yourself this evening. Get rest, do what brings you comfort, and we can deal with the fallout when the fallout comes. I think that's all I've got.
Appreciate it, Josh. No, that was, well, one, I want to thank you for that, but also for your expert analysis throughout the night from start to finish. I think you were, the clearest voice throughout the night about what we should be looking at, what we should expect, and walking us through this map as the polls closed across the country. So want to thank you for this, and obviously for all the work we get to do together here at People 4. And Karen, Dillon, want to thank you all for agreeing to partner with us for this space. I think this was therapeutic, obviously, for all of us, but also really informative. I think that, all of us and the broader audience had really key questions about what they should expect, but also about what this means for our future and for the critical fights that these races will impact in the future. And I think you all did such a great job at both yourself, but also bringing voices to the table who spoke really eloquently to that moment. So, any closing reflections before I think we all get a well-deserved rest and wait for some of these final totals?
Yeah, I do want to come in and just say, I've loved working with you guys. I mean, I know when I first mentioned this idea to Karen, we thought it was just gonna be some small little thing. And it's been really great working with you guys on this. You guys have been a great help, and I've loved getting to, work with you and Meg and Josh and everyone. And I think that although, tonight, we're all looking, you'd be lying if you weren't a little anxious. I think that having this platform has been really helpful.
Yeah.
And, it's just in general, being able to bring everyone together, have people on, that in itself is, a big feat. So like you said, taking a look, like Josh had mentioned, taking a look at those other wins, like we have had a lot of wins tonight, and just to keep reminding each other of those.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
sure.
I think that was probably one of the most helpful things I heard, because he's right. I mean, like there's definitely there's some things too that really did go very right tonight. So, and I appreciate everybody. And Dylan, thank you for pulling this together. For those of you who don't know, Dylan started out as an intern. This was his kind of passion project. And I think you just did an excellent job pulling it all together. So thank you.
Couldn't have done it without, without anyone else. Like, I mean, so it's been great.
We appreciate it. We appreciate you. And obviously, most of all, we could not have done it without the incredible folks who joined us tonight from around the country to share in this moment, to engage in conversation, to listen to the voices that we brought to the table, who we thought could be impactful to you throughout these hours. So I want to thank everybody. Obviously, thanks to Meg, who's been running this incredible show behind the scenes and pulling us in from a million different locations across the country to make this possible. So thank you all. Have a great night. Take care of yourselves. We'll continue to watch these races and stay tuned to your emails, to social media, to our networks at People for and Defense of Democracy. There is work to do tomorrow and in the days after, and we need you in this fight. So thanks. Good night, everybody.